Okay, so John reminded me or told me that it was Pi Day, and one of his teammates has got a particularly relevant way to celebrate that. I won't give any. Oh, there we go. She's up there on the top of my screen. Christine's daughter, Alice. I think that's right, isn't it? Yes, excellent. So that'll be a bit of fun. Also, this month it was St. Patrick's Day, who apparently is the patron saint of engineers, which I didn't find out until this year.
No, it's not Pi Day today.
No,
on the
14th of March,
yes.
or 3.14 of
as the Americans say
every year, as the Americans say. Yes. Well, let's celebrate Pi Day. Alice, over to you.
I'm going to recite the 100 digits of pi. 3.14159, this is pi, followed by 2653589, circumference over diameter, 79933, OMG, can't you see, 8462643, and now we're on a spree, 38 then 32, now we're blue, oh who knew, 7,950 and then a 2, 88 and 41, so much fun, now we run, 9716939 and 3751, halfway done, 058, now don't be late, 209, where's the wine, 74, it's on the floor, then 94459, 230, we gotta go, 78, we can't wait, 1640628, we're almost near the end, keep going, 62, we're getting through, 089, 9 on time, 8628834, there's only a few more, 82, then 53, 42, 11, 70, and 67.
Wow, fantastic.
That's amazing.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Incredible.
Very
Superb.
good. Obviously, I was following on, and you got every number bang on. Excellent. That's wonderful. Very good celebration of Pi.
I only counted 99.
Wow. Okay.
How long
That
did
was
it take
really
to learn that,
impressive.
Alice? How long did it take you to learn that, Alice?
About 2 days.
Wow. Incredible.
Very good. And you weren't reading it whilst you were singing it. Remarkable. That will stay
Very
with you
good.
for life.
Very good. Loved it.
Okay. I'll try and follow that. That's going to be a difficult one.
Good luck, Matt.
Last month, I showed you a mystery item, and the idea was that you guess what it was. Last month, it was a USB-powered coat hook, which was actually quite useful, as it turned out. Anyway, this month is a slightly different object. It is covered with its brand name, so hang on, I need to show you the screen here. Too many screens going on. There we go. That's the image. I'm not really going to describe it, but that is the mystery object, and I will reveal what that is afterwards. And I've got one in my hand now, so I might even demonstrate it. So any first offers of if you know what it is, don't spoil the fun. But
does it have a tiny light on the end?
Yes.
And would you use it with a camera?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's my question's gone then. Okay.
Yep.
I was going to guess it was like some sort of spatial writing thing where a camera.
Oh, where 3D writer kind of
plastic
creating thing. Well, you're not 100 miles away.
Is it a UV light at the end, Matt?
That's a little bit too detailed. So yes, it is. Good.
I think I know what it is.
Okay.
I think I know what it is as well. Okay.
It's not really a mystery object with a capital M this month, really.
I know you said you think, I thought I knew what it was. Then I was wrong. So.
It's a sporting item.
It's not specifically for sports, although it has its uses within that field.
I thought it was a fishing bite detector.
Oh.
Would you adhere one thing to another with it?
That's a possibility, but in quite a specific way. you might be going down the wrong trouser leg with that train of thought. Okay, so I'll let you take in that wonderful object for a couple more seconds. Oh, that was close. I nearly. I must remember to put a don't go past this slide. Okay. Note to self: work on the mystery object bit. Okay, so anyone in Thanet got any technology related news? I think Carrie had an event as part
We
of
did.
PAL.
Yeah, it was really good actually. So that was what was it? A couple of Sundays ago. Yeah, it was in line with International Women's Day. So PAL Thanet had a festival, week-long festival, which was all online. And I ran a Women in Tech talk, which was brilliant. We had 4 fantastic women, 2 of them from Thanet, well, 3 including myself, and it was great. You can actually watch it back on the PAL Thanet website. They've got all of the events that were there, and I don't know if Becky's on the line. Becky also did a design panel talk, which was really fantastic as well. So they're both online to watch. So yeah, it was really good. It was a really good experience actually, broadcasting live. It was fun. Yeah. Did you watch it, Matt?
I did, yes. It was very good, really insightful,
Good.
actually, and you covered lots of I wouldn't say generations, age groups and different stages of career.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting how perhaps attitude or the work environment has changed for women over the decades.
Yeah, and I guess
or maybe hasn't changed.
Yeah, and I guess what's really nice is that we all did very, very different things in tech. So we're all coming from it, you know, with different hats on, which was really great. I think it's Nicola on the line as well. Nicola was one of our guests on the panel. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. I don't think there's any other particularly technology related news here. I suppose there's a bit of a shout out. I'm trying to find other people to speak at future meetups. I've got a couple of leads. One of them is someone who's working on the London array, the wind turbines, just a couple of miles, 12 miles off the coast from Margate.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
Be really good.
Yeah.
Do you, Matt, just an idea. I'm wondering, should I see if Liz from Tech Resort in Eastbourne would like to come along?
Absolutely.
And tell us all about what they do down there. I just think it's really interesting what they do, because Eastbourne is got kind of like the same economic landscape as Margate. You know, they're a coastal town that's, you know, kind of slightly deprived economically, and there's not really much of a tech industry there, and they've been running for 7 years, and what they're doing is, you know, teaching and advocating for digital skills, and I just think what they're doing is great. They get involved in lots of different community projects. So if everyone's interested, I'll ask Liz to come along, because she's brilliant. You know, they just do all kinds of stuff, make a space, and they're just incredible what they're doing. So I think it'd be interesting. So yeah, I'll ask her.
I would love to hear from them, definitely. And if anyone here would like to give a talk about anything they've worked on in the past, they're working on at the minute, or they're just interested in, I'd be very happy if they would send me a message, and we can sort that out. I'm just having a quick look at chat. Okay. It's like juggling plates, this doing a Zoom meeting. It's I need someone to press buttons for me, or not press buttons and reveal the secret of the mystery item at the wrong time. Anyway, so I think now is the time to switch over to our speakers. So first up is Andy Stanford-Clark, followed by Sean Clark, no relation. I won't steal the thunder by giving an introduction, because I think that always comes best from the speaker themselves. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Andy to talk.
Great, thanks, Matt, and good evening, everybody. I work for IBM, the computer company, and have been done so for many, many years, far longer than most of you have been alive, one or two grey-haired exceptions. So I did sciences at A-level and went on to do computer science and maths at University of East Anglia in Norwich, and then did a PhD, so I'm Dr. Stanford-Clark, also in computer science. That was in getting lots of little computers to talk to each other and collaborate to solve big problems. So that was always interesting. And then I joined IBM as a software engineer, and have been doing that ever since. That was 30 years ago, shock horror. And in that time, I've worked on many different technologies and lived in America for 3 years. And I now live on the Isle of Wight. So I have a particular affinity for ferries and the sea and ships and all kinds of stuff like that, which has led me to some interesting projects, which I'll be talking about in a moment. I haven't actually been off the island for work for just over a year. So my memories of ferries are a little bit dim and distant, but I'm quite happy here on my little island, that's fine. So I can't remember who it was now. Andy, I think, mentioned that I've been talking to the Essex STEMettes about Mqtt, and that was because I'm highly qualified to speak about Mqtt because I invented it 22 years ago. And pretty much my life ever since then has revolved around advocating, evangelizing, telling the world about the Internet of Things and Mqtt. I've done a few other things along the way, but still my heart returns to playing with Mqtt. So in the evenings, weekends, I still spend my time playing with Mqtt, even though my job in IBM is now as Chief Technology Officer. So I'm the CTO of IBM UK. So I have to think and talk about all of IBM's technologies, from blockchain to quantum computers to big mainframe computers to little computers, and all points in between, and occasionally get to talk about Mqtt as well. Still my favorite subject. So I thought I'd give you a very, very quick overview, an introduction to Mqtt and the programming language which I use these days to do pretty much all of my programming, which is Node-RED. I can do show of hands, but has anybody heard of Node-RED and used Node-RED? A few of you, not many. Okay, those people with cameras off, I can't actually tell. So in that case, I'll just share my screen very quickly. And this is going to be literally the 2-minute demo of Node-RED and Mqtt. And then we'll look at some fun things. That's that one there. Share. Right, are you seeing my screen?
Yes,
window.
I can.
Yep, okay. So Node-RED is what's called a low-code programming environment. So the idea is that you don't actually write any code, ideally. You just drag and drop things. A bit like Scratch, if you've done Scratch at school. It's kind of like Scratch for slightly older people, but not necessarily, because lots of children use Mqtt as well. So it's very well suited to Internet of Things. So it runs on Raspberry Pis, laptops, in the cloud, wherever you like running stuff. I did a deal with Eben Upton, the creator of Raspberry Pi, a few years ago to make sure that Node-RED is on every Raspberry Pi on the planet. So if you've got a Raspberry Pi, it's already got Node-RED on it. If you've got the full version of the operating system, if not, it's just a couple of clicks away to install on that menu of things you might like to use. So as with all programming languages, I'll show you how to do hello world in Node-RED. Sorry, it's been a long day. So the inject node means you can send a message. But the overall idea of Node-RED is it gets a message from somewhere, does something to it, then sends it somewhere else. So you've got input nodes, which where you get messages from. You've got output nodes where you send messages to. Then you've got function nodes, which is doing stuff to messages. And you can do all sorts of things like comparing and changing and triggering and delaying and formatting messages and all kinds of stuff. So, and lots of people have written nodes, these things on the left-hand side, for Node-RED. So it's an open source project. Go to nodered.org and you can download it and install it very easily. It was actually created by two of my friends at IBM here in the UK, in Hursley, near Winchester, Dave and Nick, and they still look after the project. But we open sourced it about 8 or 9 years ago, and that was the best thing we did, because it means that lots of other people can write these nodes now. So if you've got Philips Hue light bulbs or in-ocean sensors or whatever it is you've got, there's almost certainly a node for it. I was doing some stuff with AIS data from ships the other night, and I thought, I wonder if there's an AIS node. And there is. You just feed your raw AIS data into this node, and lovely information about ships comes out the other end, which is really cool. So let's do our hello world. So we want to send a string. Hello, oops, Thanet and co. And then we want to display that as a debug node, which is very, very useful. So we like putting print statements in your Python programs, and you just wire that up to there. So when we press the inject node, it'll come out on the debug node. So we then deploy that. So it's gone from my browser to wherever the Node-RED is running. In this case, it happens to be running on my local computer, my laptop here, but it could be running on one of my many Raspberry Pis, or in the cloud, or somewhere else. And now when I click the button, it comes out on the debug. So that's hello world in Node-RED. Now let's do some MQTT. That's what we're all here for. So there is a very conveniently, obviously, because I was involved in creating it, MQTT nodes are built in. And MQTT, you have two nodes. One is a publisher, which one that sends data out. That's the one where there's something on the left-hand side you can send something to. So we can send our string to there, and then it gets sent out to somewhere, and we'll talk about it in a minute. And then on the receive end, you have a subscriber, which is incoming messages. So this starts a flow, and we connect that to our debug. So at some point, the message will come from there, across to MQTT, go out onto the internet, come back in here again, and get displayed on the debug. So we'll change this to hello MQTT. I love doing live programming. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, and now we look at our MQTT. Now, MQTT is what's called a publish and subscribe messaging system. So the idea is that people who produce messages are publishers, people who consume or use messages are called subscribers, and in the middle, there's a thing called the broker, and that sits between the publishers and subscribers. And if you're subscribed to something, if somebody publishes something that you're interested in, the broker sends a copy of it to however many people are subscribed to it. So there might be one person subscribed to it, there might be 1,000 people subscribed to your data. You don't know that, only the broker knows that. So for small devices, it's really, really handy, because all you have to do is publish your data to a broker, and that's it, job's done. You don't know or care today, tomorrow, a year's time, how many people are going to be subscribed to that. You just send it to the broker and let the broker worry about the hard bit of sending it to everywhere else. So let's, we've got a broker configured here. There are lots of brokers out, several brokers out on the internet that you can just play with. This one's called mqtt.eclipseprojects.io. I say there are several, or you can get your own. There's one called Mosquito, which is open source, which is very cool. It also runs on Raspberry Pis. And we're going to send it to a topic. It's called Thanet for the sake of argument. Whoops. That's going to be, now every message has a topic, a bit like every letter has an address on the front of it, or every email has a subject line, tells you what the message is about. So our topic for this is Thanet, because it's going to be about messages about Thanet. And the way the publish and subscribe bit works is if you want to subscribe to a message, you have to tell the broker what topics you're interested in. So if we tell the broker that we're interested in Thanet topic, and I publish on the Thanet topic, then it'll go out of here to the broker, and the broker will say, haha, this one down here is interested in the Thanet topic. I'll send this one a message, and it'll come out here, and we'll see the message on there. If we subscribe to something else, let's suppose we publish it to Fred, because that's where we happen to be publishing today, and I publish that, we don't get it over here because we're subscribed to the Thanet topic, not the Fred topic. Actually, I'll stay with Fred now. If we change this to subscribe to Fred or feed, let's spell it correctly. So now we're both publishing to Fred and subscribe to Fred. If we publish that there, ta-da, it arrives in the debug. So we've now sent a message to wherever the broker, the Mqtt Eclipse broker is. I think it's in Boston somewhere in the US, doesn't matter. It went really quickly over the internet to that broker, and the subscriber was supplied with a copy of the message instantaneously. And the beauty of Mqtt is it's a push notification. So you haven't got to keep saying, is there a message for me? Is there a message for me? Is there a message for me? Over and over again. You just sit there, and when there's a message for you, the broker sends it to you really quickly, and it doesn't consume lots of bandwidth over your cell phone link or your satellite connection or whatever it is you're using. So it's really frugal in its use of bandwidth and very easy to implement on little devices. Okay, that's MQTT and Node-RED in a nutshell. Any quick questions about that?
Yes, Richard here. Oh, I'll put the video on. Can you see me?
Yep.
So the if the receiver is down at the time when that message is published, do they, if it then comes back online 5 minutes later, would it get that message? Would the subscription still work?
Can do.
You have
so you
to
can
be live at the time to receive the message.
It's a really good question. So MQTT caters for all eventualities. So if you don't want it to do that, there are three what's called qualities of service, which is how hard the publisher, the broker, and the subscriber work together to get the message to you. If you don't really care, whatever you send may or may not get there, you use QoS 0, which is the lowest quality of service. If you really, really care a lot, and whatever happens, it must get through. Say I'm sending you some money over MQTT, and you really want to get it, no matter what happens, whether I'm offline, the broker's offline, you're offline. At some point, we want the message to get through. We use QoS 2, which is exactly once delivery. So it will be delivered once and once only, and you will eventually get it. I can't say when, but at some point when we're all up and connected, and it might be that I send it to the broker and then disconnect, and then tomorrow you connect to the broker and receive it. So you can collect the messages that were waiting for you, a bit like when you check your email. But mostly for Internet of Things stuff, we want stuff to happen instantly. And more to the point, if we are offline and I send a message, say to my light saying, turn the light off, and it wasn't receiving it, I don't want that to happen tomorrow when it does come back online. So normally we do everything at QoS 0 and it gets through. And if it doesn't, you go, why didn't that work? I'll do some remedial action. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay.
Andy,
yes.
Does it cost anything to get a broker, to buy a broker?
No. I mean, so Mqtt is completely free. There are several open source brokers. And as I just demonstrated, there are several that are out there that you can just use for free anyway. You can just use somebody else's broker because they are up there for test purposes. But no, brokers are generally free. You can buy them if you want to. You can buy really highly scalable, robust industrial strength ones for your factory or your Internet of Things system. Like we do connected car projects with car manufacturers. We do connected vacuum cleaners with a particular vacuum cleaner manufacturer. And they've bought their own sort of MQTT infrastructure. But no, you can just use this stuff free, play with it. And Mqtt is wonderful. It's not, even though it's free, it's not restricted or limited in any way. It's one of the most powerful, scalable brokers.
Sorry, Andy. Are there any age restrictions? I noticed we've got a few children here. Can they do it? And is it safe for them?
Well, if you run your own broker and you send messages and you receive your messages, then only you're using it, so it's completely safe. If you used a public broker and you chose to subscribe to everything on that broker, not just the things you sent it, but you had a look at everything, then you could receive messages that were unsuitable, because who knows what's being published. It's a public broker, in the same way as if you read the graffiti on the bridges as you go on the train, you might see a word that wasn't appropriate, or if you look in the newspaper, you might see it. So public information on those brokers. But if you run your own broker, or if maybe the Stemets want to run their own broker, or the Geekery wants to run its own broker with username and passwords for trusted people, then you could kind of lock it down and police it more relevantly. But if that's important, which of course it is important, my best advice is to run your own broker. Get a copy of Mosquito, run it on a Raspberry Pi at your own house, and then it's safe from anybody else, because you've got the firewall in your internet router protecting it from anybody else connecting into it. So only you will be sending messages to it.
Great, thanks very much for answering that.
Thank you, good question. Okay, should we see some more cool things? So I do a lot of things with Arduino type devices, even though I've mentioned Raspberry Pis a few times. So I'm particularly fond of the WeMOS, which is a WeMOS.cc, which is an ESP8266, which is quite a powerful Arduino. And the advantage of it is it's got Wi-Fi built into it. It's got a little Wi-Fi antenna there. So it's an Arduino with Wi-Fi built in. And these are very, very cheap, like a couple of pounds, or £5 or £6 if you buy them on Amazon, but it depends where you get them from. And it's got a micro USB power supply. So you just plug it into 5 volts and it does stuff. Now, quite a long time ago, I started looking at what I call ambient devices. This is rather than celebrating in how many hundreds of thousands of pixels you've got on your super wide TV screen. This is just 1 pixel, single pixel displays. And that gets you into the area of what's called glanceable displays. So ones where you don't look at them specifically, but just on the corner of your eye, you see that that's red, or it's green, it's gone amber, oh, that's blue now. And that's telling you something. And because of what you've programmed it to do, you know what that means. And I call this thing the glow orb. So I make this little product. This is version 1 of it. It was called the glow orb. So that is a ping pong ball, 3D printed case, and it uses MQTT. Plug it into USB power supply. It's got a here's one I made earlier. It's got a WeMOS with a NeoPixel inside it. It's got a single NeoPixel display. It's a red, green, blue display. So you can basically send this a color. You just throw a color at it. So you just send it like hash FF0000, and that turns it
red.
Red. Well done. So you throw an internet color at it, and it goes that color, which is really nice. It's a very ubiquitous output device. And looking around my room here, most of my devices are indeed glow orbs. There's a couple of variations. One is the MQTT button. Instead of sending it a color, whenever you press it, it sends the word push over MQTT. So you can just receive the word push. So it's a really handy way of getting an input device. And one of the things I've been working on recently is a device for helping look after your granny when she's living on her own. And this is by making sure she's had a cup of tea. So at her house, you put, or his house, if it's granddad, you put this little monitor, which plugs the kettle into the back of that, and that plugs into the socket. That connects over MQTT, over granny's Wi-Fi, assuming she has some. Then in your house, you have this little ambient kettle. And this is a glow orb with a different printed top on it. And when she has a cup of tea, this goes from blue through amber, through not amber, blue through purple, through red, just like as if it's heating up. And then it goes green, which means granny's okay, she's fine, she's had a cup of tea. And first thing in the morning, that's what you want to know, because it means she's up and about, she's feeling okay, she's had a cup of tea. And if for any reason she hasn't had a cup of tea by 10 o'clock in the morning, it turns red and you get a text saying granny hasn't had a cup of tea yet. So you might want to give her a call, check she's okay. And that's wonderful peace of mind for both granny and you and anybody else who's sort of looking after elderly relatives or vulnerable people. So It's called the Kettle Companion, and we're going to be launching it as a product quite soon. But it's all there is inside it is just a little these Wemos things with a NeoPixel. So these NeoPixels are great things. You can either have one or several of them to make strings of lights. I've got a string of them I made here. There's 50 of them here hanging from my wall, which I'm using as a thermometer to show levels of things. Now, what I've got is this little camera which I can go roving with. So I'm going to give you a little tour of my study here and show you some of my projects.
Andy, while you're doing that, can I just ask you, the Kettle Companion, are you launching that through IBM?
No, nothing at all to do with IBM, no.
Where will it be launched via?
Well, kettlecompanion.com.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
For starters, Kettle Companion on Twitter, Kettle Companion on LinkedIn, Kettle Companion on Instagram, whatever your favorite social media platform is. Cool. We're actually looking for people at the moment to participate in trials. So we're still evaluating this. So yeah, if you've got elderly relatives and would like to participate in the trial, do get in touch, because this is early days for this. Yeah, although it's been quite a lot of years in its sort of maturing in my brain, and lots of prototypes, some of them big, some of them small. We're getting to the stage where we want to commercialize this now, and nothing to do with IBM. This is me with my SC at home hat on.
Cool, amazing. Right. I love it.
Thank you.
There was an interesting story about that kind of system, and how the elderly relatives kind of gamified it. They started to realize that if they didn't boil the kettle to get a cup of tea in the morning, they would get a phone call instead. So they started using pans to boil the water, so they could have a cup of tea.
No substitute for giving Granny a call. So interestingly, I was involved in the Smart City project in Manchester, the name of which has just gone from my mind. But they looked at intervention. So when people contacted their elderly relatives, and they discovered counterintuitively that people who had things like ambient kettles, these Kettle Companions, they got phoned more often, because there's this idea of ambient connectedness. So the idea that when you actually see the kettle boiling, you go, Granny's having a cup of tea. I'll give her a call, because I know she's sitting down, and you can have a chat with her. So people are actually more likely to give Granny a call because they'd been kind of linked to them through this Kettle Companion. And one of the things I've been playing with, actually, this would be a good thing to start with. Oh, can you go back to me on can you unshare your screen, whoever's Matt?
I think you need to start sharing your screen again.
I don't want to share the camera. I want my camera to go full screen.
Oh, okay, I think I can spotlight you for everyone. I think that's.
So if you just do view and then do speaker, tick. Right, that's it. Right. Here's my camera. Woo. This is my aid memoir for look here. Yeah. So one of the things we've done is the ambient tea tray. So let me just turn the light up a little bit. So this is when you've got a family of people who've all got ambient kettles. This is actually modelled on something that we saw at the Tutankhamun exhibition in London just over a year ago, just before lockdown, in fact. And it's basically 6 little glow orbs, 6 little ambient kettles. And when one of these people has a cup of tea, the kettle at the back goes through its boil cycle. So I can see at a glance, first of all, that everyone's okay. In fact, see that 2 of them are amber. That's because 2 of the people I'm monitoring are actually offline. Their kettles have been turned off for some reason. One of them I know why. It's my daughter, who's on her way back to France, and she hasn't arrived yet, so her kettle hasn't been plugged back in again. Mm-hmm. But that's a nice way of keeping tabs on a whole family of people using ambient technology, ambient connectedness. So let's look at some other things. This is the weather clock. It's a bit hard to see the colours. If I turn the light a bit, it's always a bit problematic because cameras don't like color NeoPixels. Oh, you can see it quite well. So, oops, let me get it centralized. So there's a red flashing dot on the top left-hand corner, about just after 9 o'clock as a clock. If you look at it that way around. Is this image flipped for you, or does that look like just after 9 o'clock? Or does it look like nearly 3 o'clock?
That looks like
It's
after
good.
9 o'clock to me. That's yeah.
9 o'clock.
good.
Okay, cool. Right, so that's the time. So it's just after 6 p.m. Just 7 something. In fact, it's on the next pixel round. So this is a 24-hour clock. So midnight is at the top, midday is at the bottom, 6 a.m. is at 3 o'clock, and 6 p.m. is at 9 o'clock. So it's just past 9 o'clock. So it means it's 7 something. That made more sense to me than it did to you. But the fact is that you can see you can probably see some cyan blobs on there. That means tomorrow, between 1 a.m. and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to be raining. So this is a constantly updated weather forecast for the next 24 hours for my house, for here. And this is getting data from the Weather Company, which is a weather forecasting company. If you ever watch the Weather Channel on telly, the Weather Company is the company behind the Weather Channel that actually does all the weather forecasting. IBM owns the Weather Channel, and so I can get access to the data. So I can get every 15 minutes, we calculate for the whole world a weather forecast, and we do it on a 0.5 kilometer grid. So if the weather's here, it's going to be different from across the field from me, which it might be, might not be. We get real sort of microclimate here on the Isle of Wight. Then the weather forecast will be different in that cell. So I can get the cell for my house, the weather forecast every 15 minutes updates, and so I can see if it's going to be sunny, cloudy, drizzly, or rainy at my house. It's quite cool. So my moon, yeah.
Is each one of those a separate sort of glow orb, or are they all daisy chained together and one WeMOS on it?
Very good question. Oh, you're asking some brilliant questions here. That's actually a NeoPixel ring. So you can buy a little circuit board with, in this case, 24 NeoPixels stuck to it, and they're all wired to each other. So there's one input at the beginning where you send a signal saying, tell pixel 3 to turn blue. So it goes, okay, boom. So you can control whole strings of these just with one. They're automatically chained together. So you just have one connection to your computer at the beginning of the chain, and then they're all connected on like nose to tail. So it's a bit like my strip of them. It's a bit like one of these strips, except it's in a circle, thanks to the way they've been stuck together. So you can buy 8, 24, 16. You can buy a 51. I've got a really big glow orb here, like a massive glow orb. This is called the Mahusive glow orb. There's a 24-way one inside there, which makes it glow really brightly when it's working. Right, what else can we show you? Let's go over here. My son is a policeman and he works shifts. And this tells me which shift he's on, this TARDIS here. So that's green today, which means he's on a rest day. But if it's got 4 different colors, meaning the different shifts that he's working. So I can see if he's on a night shift or a day shift or a late shift or whatever. But green means he's having a rest day, so I can give him a call and he won't be annoyed by that. This one here, now most of you are far too young to know who that is. But that's Karen Carpenter. She was a singer in the 1970s and 80s, and she wrote and sang a song called "Rainy Days and Mondays," and this is my Rainy Days and Mondays glow orb. So on Mondays and days when it's going to rain today, it lights up. On the other days, it's off. So the fact that it's off now means it's neither Monday, it's not, because it's whatever day it is, Thursday, and it's not going to rain today. Now, remember what I said with the weather clock a minute ago? The rain starts at 1 a.m. So it is actually, strictly speaking, correct that it won't rain today. But tomorrow when I wake up, that'll be lit up blue because it's not Monday, but it will be raining. So rainy days and Mondays make this little glow orb light up. That was a lockdown project. This is the Hickey, the Holy Island Causeway indicator. My parents live in Northumberland on the northeast coast near Newcastle, and they go to Holy Island quite often. And some of you might know there's a causeway which is only open when the tide is out. And so when the tide's in, you can't get by car over to the causeway, over to the island. So the Holy Island Causeway indicator is either red or green, telling you whether the causeway is open or not. And this one here, and this is a count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 16-way maybe a 12-way. I don't know, I can't count them. Maybe a 12-way. Yeah, this is a 12-way NeoPixel ring. Tells you how many hours. It counts down the hours until the Causeway is going to be the opposite of what it is now. So that means we've got 3 and a bit hours of Causeway open before it goes red, and then it's going to be closed for most of the night, and it'll open again tomorrow morning. So that's obviously no use to people living on the Isle of Wight whatsoever, but people who live around Northumberland, we actually sell these to people who have guest houses and hotels and pubs and things in and around Holy Island, so that they can that people can be aware and they don't get stranded, because about 1 person a month accidentally gets caught out by this, and they have to be rescued by the RNLI, which is hideously expensive and endangers lives. Living on the Isle of Wight as I do, I'm obsessed by ferries, as I've probably mentioned. This is the lovely Lego model of the ferry, which is made as a kit. Red Funnel sells it. And when my children bought this for me as a birthday present a couple of years ago, I enjoyed building it immensely, but then I got a bit bored with it. So I thought, how can I improve this somewhat? So you might see here, LEDs have been fitted, and in the masts, some other LEDs have been fitted. And when she's going along, which she isn't at the moment, so there's nothing's lit up, she's actually not running tonight. Whichever way she's going, you get red on one side and green on the other side. And if she's going the other way, you get green on that side and red on the other side. So it's the real ferry actually has both coloured lights on it, because she's a ro-ro ferry, and so you can load it up at both ends. And depending on which way it's going, it sets the lights differently. And we get the data. I mentioned AIS earlier, so I'm getting an AIS feed from the real ferry, which tells me which direction it's going in, so I can set the lights on my model according to which way the real ferry is actually going. So I get red, so I can see at a glance if she's going to the island or from the island towards Southampton. And if it's parked, all the white lights come on, so the deck lights and the mast lights come on, and so these are proper nav lights. So you get high at the back and low at the front in the direction of travel. It's all pretty cool. And I will just show you one last thing. This is my current project with work, is the Mayflower autonomous ship, which you may have heard about. And if you haven't, look at mas400.com. Mayflower autonomous ship, mas400.com. This is somewhat to celebrate. Let me have a quick drink. Celebrate the 400th anniversary, excuse me, of Mayflower crossing the Atlantic. This is a fully autonomous ship, nobody on board. Ooh, choking. It's powered by an AI captain, piece of software which IBM and some other companies have been developing. And in May, she's going to set off from Plymouth, UK, across the Atlantic to Plymouth, Massachusetts, recreating the route of the original Mayflower. And on board will be a whole load of science experiments. So it's a data gathering ship. And there's experiments to do things like look for pollution in the atmosphere, in the ocean. We've got an electronic tongue that's going to taste the water. We've also got an experiment that's looking at for microplastics, collecting samples for that. And we've got a hydrophone, an underwater microphone that's going to listen out for whale songs during the journey. So we've got a number of experiments that are going to be on that first voyage. And this model that I've made here is actually it tracks, again through AIS, the data of the Mayflower. So when she's going along, we get this lovely blue pulse going along. This is the speed she's actually going through the water. So if she's going faster, it goes faster like that. That's her maximum speed of 10 knots. And doing it at 5 knots to go at that speed. When she's stationary, it lights up red. So I can see at a glance what Mayflower is doing in the water. So she's undergoing sea trials at the moment, and pretty much every day she's out, and I can see how fast it's going and if it's stopped and when it gets back home and stuff like that. That's all pretty cool.
Andy,
right.
You might like to mention what AIS is for those that don't know.
Certainly, yes. Let me just turn my camera back. So AIS is a thing called Automatic Identification System, which is a radio beacon that all big boats have to have. It's a GPS receiver, so it knows where it is, and then it sends out on a specific frequency a data packet which says the name of the boat, where it's going, which direction it's going, how fast it's going, and the latitude and longitude. So if you have a receiver tuned into that radio frequency, you can receive this data, decode it, and so you know any ships within 50 miles of you, you can tell where they are, what their name is, which direction they're going in. It's primarily used for the harbours and the ports to manage the ships coming in and out of the harbours. But it's really, really useful for tracking. If you go to marinetraffic.com, then you can type in the name of a ship, like Mayflower 400, for example, and see exactly where she is. She's at Turnchapel Wharf in Plymouth at the moment, moored up. And if you want to watch her during the day, you can see it moving around. That's Mayflower 400 been out of space, just Mayflower, one word. And there are various ways of getting AIS data from the internet. Marine traffic is one of them, but there are various APIs that sometimes you usually have to pay for or contribute some data back. You can get the AIS data. So I get the data actually from the ferry companies because I'm doing this tracking stuff. And if you are on Twitter, you can look at twittering ferries at RedJets. Is the RedJet ferry, and they tweet, all the Isle of Wight ferries tweet when they leave and arrive from the ferry ports automatically using the system that I set up 11 years ago, using the AIS data to tell when they're in port and then send out a tweet, so you can find out if the ferries are running late or on time or not running at all.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm sure the radio types know that you can also pick up the AIS data sort of via a radio, use an SDR dongle, plug it into your computer or your Raspberry Pi, plot a map. Great fun for if you're near a channel.
Yeah, I was going to say only if you're by the sea.
yeah.
But yes, indeed you can. Yes, and that's what I was playing with last week actually. For some reason, I'm not receiving any AIS data from my radio. I haven't worked out why yet, even though I'm right by the sea.
I've often been looking at the sea from Margate, and we can almost always see some kind of ship just off the coast. And if you go to marinetraffic.com, you can actually click on a track and see a picture of the boat. You can find out what's on it, where it's been, where it's going to. It's fascinating. And because half of Margate is the sea, and it's the part of Margate that is a bit alien to me. So just being able to dip in and see that part of Margate is always fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah. Any other questions?
Andy, so you've got
eating into Sean's time here.
Oh, so you're pulling data from the internet like AIS. I assume it's your son's calendar for when he's at work and so on.
Well, he's on a shift rota, so it's just a pre-programmed cycle that goes over like how many day cycle it is, 12, 13-day cycle.
Okay, so you're doing that in Node-RED to then, and then Node-RED is talking to these APIs and then generating MQTT to the devices. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Excellent.
Couldn't have summarized it better myself.
I have a question for you. Your glow globes.
Yeah.
Is there a circuit and any information about them, or is it proprietary? And could somebody replicate that, build one if they wanted to? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So my good friend, Dr. Lucy Rogers, who's a well-known maker, wrote this up as a blog post on an Instructable, which I will happily share in the chat, and you can build your own glow orb, your own MQTT glow orb.
I'm showing a post from Lucy Rogers on IBM.com on my screen just here. All of the, if I just remove the spotlight from you for a moment, Andy, have you finished with your?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a VOC sensor, that particular one.
And Millie's got a question.
But I'll find the link for that one. Yes.
Okay, what's the question?
We were wondering, I'm sorry, Millie doesn't want to speak, but she wants to know more about the electronic tongue.
Ah, right, okay. This is really cool. So you know how your own tongue has a number of different taste receptors, so you don't have a a sensor for orange juice, you have one for bitter and one for sweet and one for sour, different ones. And you know, because you've learned it, that when those get activated a certain amount, oh, that's orange juice. So that combination of senses makes orange juice. So the electronic tongue has 5 ion sensors which detect different ions, like sulfate and hydride and different ones. And when you dip it in the seawater, we start a timer, and then we see how quickly those different senses respond to what's in the water. And we've trained an artificial intelligence model so that when if one of them takes 3 seconds, one of them takes 5 seconds, one takes 3 seconds, it goes, aha, that's petrol, or that's orange juice, or something like that. So we've trained it to look out for certain chemicals that we're interested in tracking. The one that we're actually going to install on the Mayflower actually has 50 sensors. So it's got 50 different ions in different concentrations. So the water is actually going to flow across all of them. So we open a little tap in the side of the ship, let the water slosh across the sensors and out the other side of the ship. And then we record that data, and we know we can then work out what chemicals are present in the water. It's called hypertaste.
Are you going to build one?
You could do.
What can the AI do? Like, what sort of things does it do?
Well, the AI captain takes in data from cameras, so it knows, you can see what's around it. We've trained it on millions of images of things you might bump into in the sea, so it knows how to avoid them and identify them. Ships, seagulls, kayaks, buoys, reefs, icebergs. And then it takes data from the AIS, which you now know about, and also local weather. And also it has a radar as well, so it can also get a trace of what's a bit further out from what it can see with cameras. And then it takes all that data and it puts it all together into a big, what's called an optimizer, which works out the best thing to do next, and the best direction to go in and what speed to go in, get towards its destination or the next leg of its journey. And it has to, for example, if it sees a ship in front of it, it can't just go straight through it. It has to go one side or the other. Now, it might decide to go in front of it. Now, there are rules of the road for ships called COLREGs, collision regulations, a bit like the highway code for people driving on roads. And so you have to obey those rules of the road. And one of them is you mustn't go right in front of a ship, because that's really dangerous. You should go behind it. So the AI captain proposes this route. It says, right, I want to go over here. He passes it to another thing called the operational decision manager. That has a whole load of rules in which we've encoded those laws, those rules that you have to follow. So the COLREGs, the operational decision manager goes, right, what you said is pretty much right, apart from you're not allowed to go in front of that ship, you've got to go behind it. But apart from that, you're okay. So it corrects the route, goes behind the ship, so it's now legal and it's not breaking any rules. And then the AI captain then says, right, we'll go set the rudder, set the speed, off we go. And it just keeps doing that over and over again, like every minute, until it gets to the destination.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, great question.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andy, for an inspiring talk.
Thank you, pleasure. When I find the link to the glow orb on Lucy's page, I'll put it in the chat for you. Excellent.
I've been opening web pages for some of the points that Andy raised, and I will do for other people, and then I'll collect all of those together and give a link to any links that come up, including the one Andy's looking for now, and make that available after this. So
this one connects to a cloud MQTT broker, but obviously you don't have to do that. You can just connect to your favorite broker or copy of your own Mosquito. But there's Arduino code linked from that thing which I wrote, which is what runs on the ESP8266 to make it do this.
Okay, is there just one last question for Andy from anyone here? Okay, I'll just get that instructables up. Okay.
Okay, I'll ask Andy. Can we expect to see the Mayflower in Milton Keynes next Wednesday, is it?
I'll see what I can do. Is there a particular reason for it being next Wednesday?
Or Milton Keynes.
So people who don't know, I played an April Fool's joke on Red Funnel a long time ago, 10 years ago. They pinched my tweets. They put them on their website saying when the ferry were leaving and arriving, and they hadn't told me that they were going to do this. So I logged into Twitter and put Redjet 4's arrived in Milton Keynes, April Fool. So the official status of Redjet 4 on that April Fool's Day in 2009 was that Redjet 4 was in Milton Keynes. So that's kind of gone down in the annals of IoT history. Thank you for asking.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Andy. I don't know if rounds of applause is on Zoom or a normal thing, but I think that deserves a round of applause.
It was fantastic.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, with minimal delay, I would like to hand over to Sean now, who will introduce himself and talk to us now. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm wondering how do I follow the inventor of Mqtt? Well, I'm going to talk about applying Mqtt to my particular interest, which is digital arts. I'm going to primarily work or talk over some slides, and then I'll be talking over some demonstrations. Hopefully, it won't be too bit around on screen, but for now, I'm just going to share my slides and talk over these for it. So, share screen. Hopefully, I've got permission to do it. That looks good. And
that's working for me, Sean.
That is now full screen. Are you doing the slides? You don't see windows and things that I see.
I'm seeing your screen. Your audio seems to be a bit max headroom. For me.
Okay. I'm just going
glitchy.
I have multiple microphones. How about, does that sound better?
Oh, much better. Thank you, Sean.
Great. Okay, I'll stick with that one. So hopefully then I can see a few things on my screen, but I think I'm only sharing the slides. Okay, so my talk is the Internet of Art Things, and I'm going to be talking about creating artworks with, or connecting artworks with Mqtt, so the very technology that our previous speaker invented. Just have to make sure that's better. So I'm a computer artist, curator and educator. And my original degree was in computing a long time ago. And over the years, I've done various other things, culminating with a PhD in computational art, which I finished a couple of years ago. So I'm in quite a lucky position in that I'm an artist, but I also know how to use computers in quite a in-depth way. So it's enabled me really to get my head around some quite complicated technologies at times and implement them as part of my artworks. I'm based in Leicester, but I live in Loughborough. Leicester is about as far away from the sea as you can get. So I was thinking with the boat tracking that you were talking about, the nearest I can do is I can track aeroplanes from East Midlands Airport by picking up their messages, a very similar system. I hadn't thought about sending the messages to any lights though. That's an interesting one. I currently run a company called Interact Digital Arts Limited, a very small company in that it's just me and a bunch of freelancers. In the past, I've run a few companies, including Cuttlefish Multimedia, which was a web design company. As an artist, and really throughout my career, I've been interested in what I might call the increased implications of connectedness. So when I began my career, it was well, not the beginning of the internet, but it was the beginning of the internet entering public consciousness. It was before the World Wide Web, but there were things like Gopher and email and FTP and so on that were starting to become popular. And really over the last 30 years, I've watched more and more opportunities for connecting, more connectedness, and both creatively and commercially, I've been interested in ways in which I can understand it and make use of it. And I have a couple of websites. SeanClark.org is my arts website, and Interact Digital Arts is my business website where I put other projects. So this is me showing an artwork. It's a picture on a wall. It's at the Royal College of Art at an exhibition a couple of years ago. That's Genetic Moo, who are here as well and invited me or suggested I got involved. we're at as well. Now, a lot of my work, I do show prints and I show them on paper, in frames, on gallery walls, but it's really not all that I do. I also make objects, things that have built-in connectivity, screens, and I try, in many cases, I try to make them look like art objects rather than computer objects. So this is something that is powered by an Arduino. They're in small frames, and the various patterns on here evolve over time. The patterns change. The 4 screens start off at the same time, but little bits of randomness and rounding errors mean that before too long, each screen is showing something different, even though they start with the same seed, the same random number. I also make light things, so things that use the neopixels you heard earlier, and I do a lot of 3D printing to make diffusers. So there's a similar aesthetic actually between the various objects we saw earlier and some of the things that I make. What I'll do here is, this is a animated or dynamic artwork. They're framed to go on walls, but they're actually powered by a Raspberry Pi and contain a LCD panel, so that they have the appearance maybe of a traditional artwork, but they're able to change color. And in this case, they exchange messages, and as you might guess, they're using Mqtt to do that. More on that in a minute. And I also make light objects that can form networks. So these 3 here are connected to each other via the internet. They're using the same microcontroller that we saw earlier, the little WeMOS D1, and they contain strings of LEDs, and the animation patterns inside them spin the colors up and down. And again, these objects will swap colors using Mqtt. And actually to the side, you can see a little sensor unit here, which will also send out data when environmental things change, like the temperature, air pressure, amount of light, and so on. And the objects will respond to air pressure in very much that ambient way, really. I like the idea of these art objects changing, and you know that they're changing for a reason. It's not a random change, but that reason isn't always obvious. I find that quite fun. And occasionally I'll make my artworks out of paper as well, because I'm interested in ultimately how the systems behind these artworks operate, the rules, the algorithms, and so on. What I did here to demonstrate that the systems can exist without computers is I made a version out of paper, and I provide a set of rules that you have to follow. And if you follow the rules, you can construct the artwork. So quite a diverse range of things. So Art Things. Art Things was a solution to a problem that I had, and the problem was, how do I send messages between my artworks via the internet? You might think, oh, it's a pretty straightforward thing to do, maybe use web technologies or this, that, and the other. But I had a few additional requirements that I wanted to meet. I wanted this technology to work with microcontrollers. I have a big box of microcontrollers here, do a lot of work with microcontrollers, and they don't necessarily have a lot of memory, although some do. They're not necessarily very powerful, although some are. And they had to be able to run the same technology as the PCs, that's both the desktop machines, Raspberry Pis, and other computers that I use, and also web browsers, because some of my artworks run inside web browsers, and increasingly I use web browsing, the web browser, as my platform, if you like, for my artworks. I also wanted something that would cope with what you might call variable network connectivity, both in terms of the amount of data. Not everywhere has super high speed broadband and Wi-Fi, but also the network may go on and off at times. You can't guarantee the network's going to be on in some more remote areas, but I wanted my artworks, if they were going to connect to the internet, to still be able to connect. I wanted something that would work with short messages, because when I send my messages from artwork to artwork, I might be sending something very small, like a color. I might say, this artwork is green, and I want to send that green to that artwork and swap it for the color you've got, which is red, and the artworks will swap the colors. But the message is tiny. I didn't want something that was a huge, what they call overhead for a short message. So during my research, I tried a number of different technologies. I started with web APIs, the sorts of things that a lot of people might use to get data from different web pages. I can also push data through the web, but it was a bit heavyweight. Certainly little microcontrollers, it's not the most efficient thing to do to run web servers on them. I also tried something called web sockets, which allows me to connect over the internet directly to a computer. There are certain disadvantages with that, such as having to maintain the connection, and what do you do if you're sending messages from one artwork to 1,000 artworks, which would be quite possible. Do you need to have 1,000 connections up at once? In the end, for the various things that I discovered and messages, or the things that we were told earlier, I had to go at using Mqtt and found it was perfect for my use. And I called my implementation of it ArtThings. And all ArtThings is really is an agreed set of topics and an agreed set of messages. So any two artworks, they can talk to each other by subscribing to each other's topics, and they can send data to each other in agreed formats. So it's not a complex thing, it's taking an existing technology and making use of it. I could also, and I did look at using Node-RED, so I could set up my logic behind the scenes graphically, but actually I settled on programming most of my ArtThings with code, but I could, and I'm thinking it might be an interesting thing to do, I could create Node-RED modules for ArtThings. That would be quite effective, I think. So I don't know if I need to show this slide, but it might be useful to run it past the maestro, so you can confirm that I understand what I'm talking about. So I was going to say, what is Mqtt? Message Queuing Telemetry Transport. Allows messages to be sent between clients. Those clients can be any device that understands Mqtt messages via computer networks. As we heard, it uses a publish and subscribe model. Now, the thing I really like about this is the point I made earlier, that I may want to have a large network of artworks that are able to exchange messages. And I don't want to have to run that network in terms of setting up all the connections and so on. And also some of my artworks may come and go over a period of days or even hours, and they get switched off. They may be taken off the internet and so on. So the publish and subscribe model allows clients to, first of all, subscribe to messages or topics that they're interested in, and then publish messages in order to share their data. And as we heard, a message broker handles the exchange of messages between clients, and I use Mqtt. I have Mqtt servers running on Raspberry Pis when I'm doing stuff in galleries, but then I have my own Mqtt server running on a Google server for messages generally when I'm out and about. And the great thing about it, amongst other things, is that it runs quite happily on microcontrollers and low power devices. Now, of course, they need to have an internet connection. So I have in my box of useful things, I have some micro bits, which are one of my favorite microcontrollers, but it doesn't have Wi-Fi, which is a bit of a pain, but I have a little solution for that. But I also have things called photons, which are a great little microcontroller that does have connectivity. And of course, the Wemos D1, which is a fantastic microcontroller, very low cost. In fact, I travel to China, well, I used to travel to China a couple of times a year. And one time I came back with a bag of 50 microcontrollers, 50 Wemos D1s for a project, and it actually cost me about £60. So a sack of microcontrollers for, I don't know, £60, not a great deal of money. And it's also worth saying that Mqtt has been an amazing success story because it does power a lot of the Internet of Things. So my application, ArtThings, is a very small application, but undoubtedly you are surrounded by things that are using Mqtt on a regular basis. If you haven't made them yourself, you might discover that a whole bundle of other things in your house use Mqtt or a similar sort of messaging. I like to think of Mqtt and Mosquito really as the sort of maybe the hypertext and Apache of Internet of Things. When the web first became popular, two technologies enabled the rapid uptake. One was, there was a server called Apache that was available for free. And then there were standards for creating content that have been shared amongst people. So you didn't have to pay to share your content. And the Internet of Things has Mosquito and Mqtt as its, I think it's underlying core, one of its core underlying technologies. So a little bit about the messages and topics. So I think of my artworks as systems, and systems are groups of connected things that work together for a purpose. And maybe the most common or the most common systems theory, or the way of looking at systems, is to think about ecosystems. Ecosystems are large, complicated collections of things, plants and animals. Those plants and animals are made of various bits, components, organs, subsystems, and so on. I think of my artworks as all existing in a giant ecosystem, and the artworks themselves are systems, and those systems are made of components, and those components can send messages I call events. So I have this sort of system, subsystem, component model for how my art universe exists. And the things, the artworks, can subscribe to all the messages related to something or just little parts of it. And this hierarchical message format enables you to operate in that way. Messages that the artworks send to each other can be numbers, simple text, or JSON formatted data. JSON is just a structured form of data that might have multiple attributes. So if it was a color, a JSON file might contain the amount of red, green, and blue as separate values in a way that a computer can read. The sender and receiver, so the artwork that's sending a message and one that's receiving a message, must agree on a standard data format, and I define a whole bundle of standard data types that my artworks use. And the messages can, in theory, be big. I checked, and it does say that it could be up to 256 megabytes of data, but in practice, they should be kept small. Really, what I'm sending between artworks are what I call triggers, things to make an artwork do something interesting. I'm not sending videos, MP3 tracks, and things like that. So the messages ought to be bytes or kilobytes maximum, although I do sometimes go up a little bit higher than that, and you'll see a demo in a minute. And the art things message, or the art things format, just like Mqtt, works with Arduino, Python, JavaScript, and Node.js, which is the server technology that Node-RED's built on. In fact, any programming language worth its salt these days that runs on an internet connected device will, I'm sure, have an Mqtt implementation. So a few things that my messages have. Every art thing, anything on the internet, has what I call a state, and the state contains information about its ecosystem, system, and component. A few things like its MAC address and web address, or IP address, a counter of how many messages it's received and sent, and how long it's been on, and how long it's been up for. And then it will have certain things added to it to do with the artwork. So if the artwork changes color, it might store the color in its state variable. And I have two messages, a hello message and a ping message. A hello message says, send me your state so I can see what you're doing. And ping says, send me your data. So I can, if you're a sensor, I can see what you're reading. And now I am going to go into the web browser. So let's see what happens here. I'm trying to, I guess have you lost my screen, or?
Oh, we can still see your screen.
Can you see the web browser?
At the moment.
Is it still on the, is it still on the slides?
I think it's still on the slides, sure.
Okay, I thought it might be.
It's getting a white screen.
Ah, okay. Does it say Art Things IO at the top?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
no.
so I'm going to share this one now.
That's it.
So we're now moving over to the browser here. So I have a little control panel, and my little control panel lets me monitor my network of art things. So I can click on a hello message, and any things that are out there will respond with their state. So at the moment, I have this dashboard, and I have two cameras, a Pycam, Pycam 2, Pycam 1. I got message. I might have two Pycam 2s, I can tell you why in a minute. And I have my web monitor dashboard. Haven't got a huge number of things out there, but I can send another hello message, and I'll get my messages back from any things that I have. Or for testing, I can send a color. So I'm going to ping a color, and I just sent a little message there. Or I can send a sound. Of course, what I'm sending is not the sound here, it's the data for the sound. So this is just the note and the duration and a few things like that. And I can send a sound. I can send other things as well as part of my test. I can send different sorts of colors, and I can send images, where they have to be small ones, and I can send text messages. So this control panel lets me send messages out, and any artworks out there listening to those messages can respond to them. So if, for example, I wanted to have a display in my house, and every time somebody sent a message to me, like a text message, it appeared on that display, I would send a text hello message, and my program would subscribe to this topic, cybercol, which is my ecosystem, end, which says it's part of the environment, all, which means it's intended for any recipient, not a particular recipient, and text, which says it's a text message. I could subscribe to those, and every time one of those messages pops up, it appears on the screen. So this control panel lets me send messages around. And as you can see, the messages are quite small. They do sort of look like this. I know they're encoded inside packets and whatever when they're sent over the internet, but you get the topic, which is hierarchical, and then you get the message. So this is a JSON message, but some messages can simply be a string of text or a string of notes and so on. So that's the sort of underlying implementation of MQTT. Now what I'll do is I'll show you a few things that use it. So I'm now showing the desktop, I think. Is that right? So
yes, yeah, we can see your desktop.
Yeah, probably more than I'd like you to see. Well, not that there's anything on here I don't want you to see, but let's see if I can just bring up my slides again. Okay, there we go. So this is my sort of implementation, and there's more to it than that, but it's actually not overly complicated. I wanted something that would be easy to understand and for people to copy. So the sorts of things that I have made using this, and these are sort of prototypes rather than necessarily artworks, I have made my own version of that little light. So it was the smallest art thing that I could imagine. It's a coloured, so it's in the centre there. It's a coloured LED, again, one of those little NeoPixels, and it can listen to messages to make it change colour. And so you can send a message to one of these, red message, it will turn red, blue. You can also send it different sorts of colours and so on. The green one is a system whereby you can do a drawing on a mobile phone or a web browser. You press send and it appears on a NeoPixel panel. What I'm doing here is I'm sending the data, which tells you which LED should be illuminated, not a picture, just a string of pieces of data. I also mentioned that bottom left there, that this artwork, which is running on a Raspberry Pi and has a high-res screen on, swaps colors using MQTT. And on the right, we have a little look inside my little environment sensor. It has the WeMOS D1 and a few little other sensors and a 3D printed case. And this is a great thing for putting in an art gallery. If you want an artwork to change according to the temperature or the amount of sound or other things, you can use this sensor to monitor the environment and check the artwork can change according to things that it sees. A few more art things over on the left here. I have a rotary switch, which as you turn the switch, it sends a stream of messages to other artworks. So you can have a dimmer where the dimmer is in one building in one part of the world and the light it's dimming is in another part of the world, and they send MQTT messages to each other. I've got a little Raspberry Pi Zero, which is acting as an MQTT enabled webcam, sensors and so on. And I like to send messages between them. So the other picture, the big circle on, is a large artwork that's responding to movement, and it changes according to movement from the camera, but also the little LED sort of can-like thing changes color as well. And I have cameras and microphones rigged up to MQTT, which might sound like it's not the sort of thing that I'm suggesting you do, because there's too much data, surely, in a camera and microphone. I'm going to give you a little demo of this one. And actually, I use the Raspberry Pis, which you can see with the cameras on top of them, to look at the data and turn it into much smaller messages. So rather than sending the entire video frame to an artwork, I simply say, there's some movement here, or these are the areas of movement. And rather than sending a sound to an artwork, I look for rapid changes in volume, and I say to the other the message is, there's sound here, sound has changed. So it's a way of me using more high-powered technology in galleries and for exhibitions, but exchanging still very small messages between those devices. I thought I'd also show you this, which is what I call lots of lights. So these are all little neopixels. Every string of neopixels, which is 50 in a string, is connected to a little WeMOS D1 microcontroller. Those microcontrollers are listening for MQTT messages. And then by sending messages to, there were originally 20, so 1,000 LEDs, by sending messages to different microcontrollers, I can generate sequences and a sort of rudimentary video wall out of this lots of lights project as well. So I'm now going to give you a few demos on the web, which will hopefully make it clear what I'm doing. So, oh, let's go back one. So let's have a little look. So ArtThings.io is where I host my projects. Can you still see my full screen okay?
Yes, we can see your desktop and we can see that.
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
So I'm going to show you the work here. So lots of my artwork is not overly complicated visually, but what I like to think is that it has complexity within the system itself. So there are two separate screens here. These screens could be in different parts of the world running on computers, or in this case, they're sitting next to each other on a web browser. The colors are sorted according to rules. And when the images are finished sorting themselves, they swap a color. They use a message and they say, I finished with this color. What can you do with it? And another copy of the message picks up the color. The first one is always a black, that's floating in the space. And now they start swapping colors with each other every now and then. And the idea of this is that you have a big network of colored grids, always swapping colors, always sorting themselves. And I think of these as like little creatures that absorb color and then they excrete colors they don't want. And they can run together. If there aren't any at all, it doesn't work because the ecosystem's empty. You need to at least have two, and you can have 3, 4, you can have 100 or 1,000. The system works with as many as you have. So that's one simple idea of an artwork. Something similar is something called circles. Now, this is 3 circles on this page. And again, these can all run in different parts of the world. So you may have a circle in one house, a circle running in another house, and a circle running at work. And they do a similar thing. They grow, and when they've finished with the color, when it's exhausted, they release the color and another one grabs it. So across the network, the colors will flow. So if all the reds were initially on one piece, before too long, the reds would spread themselves around the network, and you would see this ever evolving, ever changing collection of colors. So this is connected. Again, if there aren't any circles running, the system doesn't work. You have to have at least 2. So as long as there are 2, they can swap colors, but there could easily be 1,000. And I see these in some ways as ambient artworks. I like the idea, hopefully people like the idea that what they're seeing, this color may have done a journey around the world before you see it. It's always being passed about. And so it's maybe slightly reflective, sort of contemplative, this piece. Now, a couple that you can start to have a go with. So Pixel thing is 2 parts. It's a pixel editor, which is a very simple drawing program. And it's a pixel wall. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you, on your phone maybe, because you're using your computers, if you were to go to artthings.io/pixel, or open it in a separate window on your computer, and you open the pixel editor. So I'm going to do this, so put it to one side.
I've just put that link in chat if everyone...
Okay. And I'm going to open the pixel wall. It has a QR code on, but I don't know how clear that QR code is going to be. I've left my, I was going to do it on my phone, but I left my phone downstairs. Now, if I draw a picture, oh dear, that was an attempt at drawing a smiley face. Now, this runs primarily on a mobile phone. When you press share, that message is, oh, Okay, may have a slight technical problem here. Typical. I did just test this earlier and it was all working fine. Typical demo problems. What you should start seeing here are messages or those faces coming through here. So the program takes the image from your mobile phone and sends it to the shared screen. But I think the genetic moo people can confirm this does work, but a typical demo. So what I will have to quickly do now is go to my monitor and just see what's going on. So I'm going to monitor that and I'm going to send myself a message. Oh, there we go. The message has come through. But for some reason, which I probably won't have time to look at now, that's the message. That is basically the picture. It's a string with the color and the location. I'll just see another one pop up. But for some reason, it's not appearing on the screen. That is classic demoitis there. Let's hopefully the next one will work. Now, what I did with this piece here was that the wall was on a large public screen in Leicester and the drawing program was on people's mobile phones and they could send the drawings to the big screen. And as you can imagine, I had to change it fairly quickly because when people are given the ability to write anonymous messages and send them to a big screen, you don't always get the sorts of things that you want to see. I then changed it so you had to draw a message within a template and that templated message or picture would appear on screen. Let's see if the next demo that I've got is working okay. So Snowflake is a similar sort of thing. So this Snowflake wall has a QR code. Is it possible for people to scan that QR code, you know, or might be, maybe it's a little bit too small.
With phones, that should be okay.
Oh, okay. Or maybe you could try scanning it then. If somebody has a phone, they want to scan it, and you get the full experience. And that will take you to create a. Oh, there we go. Lovely. And when you send your Snowflake, it appears on the screen. Now this ran. There we go. There's another one coming through in Leicester City Centre. On a great big screen for about 3 or 4 weeks. So people from around the world could send snowflakes to Leicester. And the message itself is sent via Mqtt. So the mobile phone is running the Snowflake creator. People will then create Snowflake, send it, sends a small Mqtt message that arrives on the server, gets decoded and displayed. Because snowflakes have their 6-way or multi-way symmetry, and they're also these images are quite small. Those messages quite happily went over Mqtt. I did mention that messages can be big, but the convention is to have them quite small. There's a good reason for that, which is if you're sending messages to devices that don't have much memory, obviously web browsers have a lot more, you really want the message to be small so that the message can be quickly processed. So the Snowflake wall has its accompanying creator. You then create your snowflakes and you can send them to the screen. And this has worked around the world. It was quite popular. Some people in China, and I've had people all over the world using it. The reason I know they're from all over the world is that when you first use this, you may have seen a pop-up asking if I can know your location. I don't do anything with that apart from use it to help me understand the system. You don't have to accept it, but if you do share your location, I get to see where the snowflake has come from, and they have come from all over the world when this was being shown in Leicester. So again, maybe a slightly unusual way of using Mqtt, but by using this technology and keeping the messages lightweight, I now have the ability, for example, to rather than project images of your snowflake, when the snowflake arrives, a microcontroller can turn it into LED messages and things like that. And then I'll show you one more demo. And this is what I'm calling Pycam. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of my artworks, I want them to respond to movement and things that you might expect to have to use a fair amount of computing power to get. For example, I'd like artworks that can respond to the presence of faces or different colors. So what I've developed here is something I call Pycam. I realize that that's the one sitting downstairs that I've just got running, and it's not the most exciting view. So I'm not saying this is necessarily more exciting, but I'm going to run a copy of Pycam. This is all written in Python, so actually works on any computer that runs Python. So I've got my Mac laptop next to me, and I'm going to run the program. Now there is actually Pycam 2, but that one's in my office in Leicester, and it's a bit dark, so you're not seeing very much. But there's this one here. Now, when I move on here, what you'll see are a bunch of squares which tell me where in the image there's movement. I'm not actually interested in the whole video being sent to me, and that would most definitely not be a good thing to send over Mqtt. But I do send these little messages saying where the movement is. However, as humans, we sort of want to know how to interpret that, so I can ping the thing, and you'll get a static image showing what it lasts. It won't update until I ping it again, but it gives you a little reference point. So if I was to hold my hand up and ping, so I move it out the way, and you get movement information saying there's been movement where my hand once was. So I'm using image analysis here, and I'm using OpenCV, which is a free image analysis library. And what I can do with this is very sophisticated. So with OpenCV, I can even run AI TensorFlow systems that can look for quite complicated things. So if I wanted to only send a message when my cat happened to go past the camera, and in fact, I've got a number of cats, so only when the cat with a nice white face goes past the camera, the other cats I want to ignore, I can do the image analysis on the Raspberry Pi, and I can then send an Mqtt message to my artwork or to whatever else I'm using to say, I have seen a white-faced cat walk past the camera, or I've seen a blue car go past the camera, or I've seen a face, simply a human face. So I'm able to use this very low bandwidth messaging system to send high value data, high value information. So with this, I could, for example, use one of my microcontrollers, one of those, and make an artwork that responds to the presence of human faces or sound or the number of people in a room. It can count the number of people in the room. Now that microcontroller has not got enough processing power to do that, but by using one of my Pycams, which can be as low powered as a little Raspberry Pi Zero, I use the Raspberry Pi 4s at the moment to get a bit more power out of them. Use the camera to send a message which goes to the artwork. Now that camera can be sending a message that goes to 100 artworks. So I could have artworks all over the world that respond when a blue car drives past the house or something like that. Of course, the sky's the limit. And I'm not saying all of these ideas are creative ideas or interesting ideas, but they're the sorts of things that when you're thinking as an artist, you want to experiment with. You don't want to have to worry about how difficult the technical problem is. You'd rather focus on the creative uses of the technology. So if I now go back to my slides, hopefully that is okay. So what am I looking to do with this? Well, first of all, I've designed a logo. I think every project needs a logo. So I've got a new logo for Art Things. But I also have a number of specific projects in mind that I'm looking to implement. I might actually, because I haven't got any more slides, I might just stop the screen share. Actually, how do I stop the screen? I think there's a, your screen is sharing. Do I have to press a button to stop the screen share? Ah, okay, so we're back to just that. So what am I looking to use this technology for? Well, I have a few projects in mind, in fact, a couple in progress. I have a project at a shopping centre in Edinburgh. I'm working with a lighting company and they've asked me to use technology, and I chose to use Mqtt and Art Things to enable a large lighting system to respond to movement by shoppers. So when the shopping centre is empty, you get some lighting patterns, but when the shopping centre is busy, you get different patterns. But it could also do things like if it spots somebody wearing a red shirt, the lighting system could turn red, or a blue shirt, it turns blue, and so on. How we use the technology is very flexible. The point being that this is enabling us to create a lighting system that is responsive, changes according to the people in front of it. That work, I hope to go live at the new shopping centre in the middle of the year. Of course, a number of things have been slowed down, but this project I think will still go ahead roughly on schedule. I'm also very interested in using microbits as part of Art Things. The problem, of course, with the microbit, and I was sort of hoping they'd if you like, fix it with the new microbit, but they didn't. They added a speaker, which is great, but they haven't added Wi-Fi. So if I want my microbit to, another microbit, I can see one there, brilliant. They are good, aren't they? I love microbits. But I want my microbit to be able to listen for Art Things messages. So when the blue car goes past the house, I want it to make a sound or something. How am I going to do that? How am I going to get the message to the microbit? Well, my plan is using a Raspberry Pi and a microbit stuck on top of the Raspberry Pi, using all this tech here, is to make a little microbit Mqtt gateway. A microbit's full of great little things for sending messages between microbits, but not to the internet. So the Raspberry Pi receives the message from the microbit via another microbit, and it sends it out to the Art Thing network, but it can also listen to Art Thing's messages, and those messages can be sent to the Raspberry Pi. Now, I often run lighting workshops with the Raspberry Pi where I have strings or rings or a whole bunch of coloured LEDs connected to a microbit. So you would be able to take your microbit, plug some LED strings in, and then the sorts of things we heard about earlier, you can send messages, Mqtt messages, that will illuminate the strings. And my goal is to make this simple to use, give away the technology for free. And it is something that I'm working on with Genetic Moo, who make these incredible arts installations called micro worlds. So that our goal is that at some point you can turn up with your piece of technology, maybe wear it like a badge. And as you walk around the exhibition, you'll get lights and sounds on your badge coming from the artworks. So the artworks will be able to talk to you via Mqtt messaging. So we have that. And then I have an additional project, which is something I'm calling the Visual Display Unit, which is a more sophisticated microcontroller based computer, but still low cost. My target is to make this in kit form for less than £20. You can plug it into a TV and use the connectors on the front to generate interesting patterns, a bit like a sort of souped up digital Etch-a-Sketch. So you can draw patterns, make lovely shapes, press a button, and your pattern will shoot out onto the Mqtt network and arrive on another screen somewhere. So this would be maybe like the sort of next generation of the pixel thing, but enabling you to create little algorithmic artworks. Now, because I'm not allowing people to draw, I don't expect to have any problems with people sending inappropriate messages. I have a couple of sons who I employ as testers whenever I make anything like this to see how inappropriate a message they can generate. And I'm pretty sure this will not allow them to generate anything inappropriate. So the little device, you can have it plugged into your computer monitor, or you can run the software version on the web browser, and it will let you send pictures to each other, but also learn programming and learn how to program simple computer artworks. The Mqtt, or the VDU, Visual Display Unit project, is a work in progress. With Genetic Moo, I have a little bit of resource to put some more effort into it. And so it's something that may pop up at a micro world from Genetic Moo at some point in the near future. Also, now that I understand this technology and know how to use it, almost everything I do that involves connecting computers together uses Mqtt. Because I can use microcontrollers, Python programs, web browsers, Node.js programs to send simple messages, it really becomes my sort of go-to messaging technology actually for artworks, but also occasionally commercial projects where I need to connect multiple devices together. So that's where I sort of wanted to finish. Hopefully I haven't taken up too much time, and hopefully it maybe shows you a different way in which Mqtt can be used. It's very flexible, and I thank you very much for inventing it. Okay,
well done. Brilliant. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah,
very much,
can I ask a question about the microbit? I've been thinking about how to get it on the Wi-Fi as well. I'm interested in what you're saying using a Pi Zero. I've got one or two lying around. I probably could do that. But I was thinking just use one of these ESP things. Is it? Do they not have a big enough memory to have a support a TCP/IP stack? Or
no, that's a good way of doing it. And you can buy a little the WeMOS D1 chip has an ESP8266 inside it, and you can buy one of those that's been put into a form factor and looks quite similar to this for clipping onto a Raspberry Pi. And it's fine, it has enough memory for it. What I want to be able to do though is have one of these little gateways available for people to have, say, in a classroom or an art gallery, and as well as routing messages between Art Things or Mqtt and the microbits, it will also have a web server on it as well and a few other things. So I wanted something a bit more powerful, but an ESP8266, in fact, there is, I'm sure there's an Instructable which shows how people are doing that.
Okay, thanks. I'll look at that. Thanks.
Great.
I've used Bluetooth on the BBC microbit to connect to the internet.
Yeah, a few people have done a few approaches. I can understand why they don't want the microbit on the internet. It's hackable and that sort of thing. But it's also, it would be very useful because I did workshops, for example. I did a whole series of workshops early last year where, working with schools, I got the young people to make light sculptures. And what I wanted to do was to connect their light sculptures to other artworks so that light sculptures around Leicester could all talk to each other. But because we weren't really able to get messages into the microbits, they were really very much standalone or sat on their own network. It's one of those projects that I've been thinking about for about a year. And even though you're meant to have more time in lockdown, for some reason, I haven't managed to get it built, but it's on my near to-do list.
I can volunteer a little bit of information here. Having reached up out of there, and there we have the original artworks for the first 12 microbits that ever existed.
Nice, yeah.
Yes, I was in a very interesting meeting, a bit like an episode of W1A, if you ever watched it, where we were discussing what the range of a microbit, what the microbits Bluetooth should be because of child protection issues. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The idea of being able to go direct from the microbit to the internet would be wonderful.
Yeah. But also, I think even though you can't do that, the networking inside a microbit to microbit networking is brilliant. And if you haven't used a microbit to connect to another one, find somebody else who's got a microbit, and you can make little games where you send messages to each other and things like that. And it's good fun.
Yeah. Have you played at all with the microbits, the raw radio? So using, but without the Bluetooth element of it, because
Gazelle.
Only the blocks version. I haven't coded it. Any lower level than that. Yeah.
Why are you asking that, Lawrence?
It's just yeah. I mean, so I worked on the hardware side of microbits, but yeah, I'm fairly dumb on most of the software side. But one of the things that you may or may not recognize is that Bluetooth is a point-to-point, and most Bluetooth devices can only handle about 2 or 3 connections. So if you're doing something with wanting to transmit to a lot of devices, either the receiving end needs to be just looking for Bluetooth advertisements, but you can't form sufficient connections to do a great deal.
Okay.
The new microbit has a lot more capability, and you probably could implement your own sort of mesh network. But that sounds like quite a lot of hard work. Whereas just using the radio in its raw form, you may be able to make your own more crude, less secure radio network that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure. Have a look at that. Yeah. Of
Sean,
course,
You mentioned earlier that we're likely to have MQTT stuff in household bits and bobs. So I'm wondering about, I haven't got any, but I'm wondering about the Philips lights and dimmer switches and things like that. Where's the message broker in those sorts of environments? Do you have to have another hub installed in the home or something like that?
Not necessarily in the home. As long as your device can get on the internet, the broker can be anywhere in the world. I think it was mentioned earlier that some vacuum cleaners talk MQTT, so they can send messages. So once you set up your vacuum cleaner, some lighting systems do as well. Hue doesn't. Hue uses actually, I don't think it does. It uses a networking technology called Zigbee, which is a longer range, low power network. But of course, the nice thing about MQTT is that it is a short message. So you don't have to have necessarily a high bandwidth network to get them out. So you can use things like Zigbee, and there's a lot of interest in LoRaWAN at the moment, which is a way of having quite long range, low frequency messages. So if you want to send a message a minute or a message an hour, but you want to send it over a long distance, LoRaWAN can be good for that. And that of course is ideal for carrying MQTT style messages.
Do you tend to find the light bulbs and things like that you might experiment with, just more household items? Are they on Wi-Fi normally, or are they using proprietary networks that you then got to find gateways?
They'll often use Wi-Fi for the setup, but actually there's a hack space in Leicester. You're sort of a hack space, but I saw a message on the hack space recently that Aldi apparently was selling a whole bunch of so-called smart light bulbs. And these were really just very open, easy to hack pieces of technology that you could quite happily send an MQTT message to and that sort of thing.
So when you're setting it up to have a USB connection or something that you...
Yeah, often it's an app. So it might use Bluetooth to connect to your app. You set it up and then it might use another technology, Wi-Fi, whatever, to send the messages around.
Excellent. So Aldi could be a good getting started kit.
Apparently, yeah, I haven't tried it, but apparently Aldi had a lighting kit that was, or a whole range that was very, very hackable.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Can I ask a question of Matt? Sorry. Matt.
Of course, yes.
The recording that you're making of this, is it going to be available online or something? So one of our younger audience is getting very tired and very interested. She may be able to pick it up on another day to see what has been missed.
Yeah, well,
that's why I was asking.
There is a geekery YouTube channel. So far, there are 2 videos of me learning how to take off a surface mount chip and then put another one on. I wouldn't recommend you go and see it. It's very dull.
Yeah.
But maybe if I can upload these to that YouTube channel, I need to check out safeguarding and all sorts of stuff before I do that kind of thing. So it seems like a bit of a minefield, really. But I would like to make them publicly available, maybe a private link or something like that. I have just added to the Geekery website, thegeekery.uk, the option to subscribe to a mailing list. So I maybe be able to share stuff in a more targeted kind of way. But yes, I would like to share these videos, but I'm trying to do it in a careful kind of way.
Okay, thanks.
Sean, somebody's saying one of your projects, I've forgotten its name, I'm afraid, the one that swapped colours between things, really reminded me of the Game of Life, Conway's Game of Life.
Oh yes, that's a very good spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems like I'm not sure how you do that, but it'd be interesting.
Well, I think those sorts that game, something called cellular autonoma, which are grids of patterns that change according to rules. I think they're all very interested things, particularly if you think of the network of things as being bigger than just what's on your screen. So if the game, imagine a game of life where you ran it on your screen, but rather than the patterns finishing at the end and dying, they went onto someone else's screen and so on. Now you're entering the territory of genetic move, because that's what their artworks do.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was a wonderful presentation, great insights into the use of technology with art, Really wonderful. And again, I think more applause on Zoom should be encouraged. So thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and you've got a good group.
Here.
Really good. I think to kind of wrap up, the Internet of Things for me is embedding intelligence into objects and allowing them to connect at the edge of the internet in more local kind of ways. And Mqtt is a very important protocol to allow that to happen. And your practical examples of how to use that are really interesting. So quite a practical demonstration of what IoT is. And in particular, I thought it was very multidisciplinary. I think some, including myself, you know, when you think of IoT, you think maybe of people coding, making web apps. But in both of Sean's and Andy's projects, there was code there. There was the Mqtt protocol. There was using Node-RED and lots of other software stuff. But there was a lot of 3D printing going on. There was a lot of NeoPixels. There was even a couple of models of ferries and so on. So there's lots of physical making, electronics, and coding all coming together. And I think that's a really important thing of the future, that you have to be able to, either as an individual or as a team, be able to tap into all of those aspects and bring them together to have a successful project. And even beyond the technical stuff, there's the social thing. How do you get people to interact with your artwork? That multidisciplinary kind of approach to development was laid bare tonight, I think.
I think maybe something for people to think about when it comes to making your own things, connected things, is that often it's not the cleverness of the programming that matters. It's the fact that things are connected, which enables you to do different things. So that example earlier of the kettle, sending a very simple message, I'm here, I'm not here, that sort of thing. So not a complicated message, not lots of multimedia and so on, but a simple message being sent between 2 points carries a lot of information. So one bit of data can carry a huge amount of information if that piece of information is important to you. So I often think about that. So rather than the size of the message or the richness of the thing that I'm sending, what can I create that will respond in a meaningful way, an apparently intelligent way to it?
Absolutely, and that's another important point. You know, it's a small bit of information.
From past experiences with vehicle print system, they communicate what's without well, and
we just mute that radio, perhaps.
Day,
it's a small amount of information being shared, but the impact of that is so much more. That social connection of having an LED that tells you if your son's on shift or not, or if you're, you know, the power of that, you know, a few bytes of information is really interesting.
I think that combined with artificial intelligence, that is the exciting area in computing at the moment, the connectedness, how you can use the ability to connect two things or pass messages between things. Previously, you couldn't even connect them to any network. Now you can send messages between them and they can respond intelligently. I think that's the exciting area of computing. If I was doing my computing degree again, I'd specialize in AI and Internet of Things.
There's a question that was kind of nagging away in the back of my mind. I'm not quite sure how to phrase the question, but MQTT is you broadcast your message, you publish your message, and people, software, whatever, subscribes to listen to that message. But I wonder how those programs can discover that information. And I am aware of something called Hypercat, which is defining a whole load of metatypes for information related to IoT. So in web pages, you have a metatype that says this is a video, this is an audio file, and Hypercat is defining this is a temperature reading, this is a whatever. I wonder if they're going to go to this is this is an emotional connection between you and your granny. So you can I just wonder how that discovery, if everything in the world had some kind of intelligence built into it and could connect to the global internet, how do you then, it becomes impossible to have that, I'm going to subscribe to their messages because there's just too much information out there.
One thing maybe to look at if you're interested in finding unusual data sources, and they could be data sets or live data, is a lot of councils are now publishing their data sets and their live data as part of an open government initiative. So at some point you might be able to get temperature readings from every building in your borough. And you think, well, what am I going to do with that? Well, it might be an interesting thing to use to illuminate an artwork. The artwork changes according to the temperature reading. And so I think being aware that there are interesting data sets out there and data streams might enable you to create unusual, interesting objects.
I was involved about 4 or 5 years ago with a group of people, some artists, some technologists, in exactly that sort of project. We managed to get it's in Chelmsford, we put up a big sort of like light display in one of the canopies of the shopping malls that's there. We had 12 theatrical lights arranged in 4 groups, and we used what's the name escapes me out, but a sort of like MIDI DMX protocol from a Raspberry Pi that was looking at the level of pollution in and around Chelmsford city centre. They had 4 monitoring stations that were sampling the air continuously, and they gave us permission to, or they passed the data on to us. So we was able to use that and then generate some color coding algorithm to reflect the state of the pollution in and around the city. It's a great form of communication. Art is, gets the message across.
Yeah.
In a very potent way, I think. I think there'd be more uses for that as time progresses.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I've just put that in the chat. I've put a link to my website where I've put lots of info.
Oh, I forgot you were still here.
Sean, have you got any open source code for IoT, art things, and anything like that?
I haven't released my code as open source, not because I don't want to, but because I don't want people to be aware of all the security and vulnerabilities that I've got within my code. So when I've addressed that, when I've made it secure, I'll look at releasing it as open source.
Wonderful. So we're getting towards the end of the evening. I was really excited about tonight because of the 2 speakers. So before I thank them, I have to thank John Hislop and Genetic Move for finding the speakers in the first place. Brilliant. And thank you very much to Andy and Sean for giving their time up to talk to us about such wonderful subjects. Really, very good. I think you've had enough rounds of applause, but know that it's well appreciated by me, and I'm sure by the other vast amounts of people that are on this Zoom meeting. Really great. I'm just looking around my Zoom screen and seeing lots of faces that I do know and lots of faces that I don't know, and it's been a wonderful evening.
Don't forget
Thank you very
Alice.
much, everyone.
Don't forget Alice, Matt.
Especially Alice, of course. Yes, the song is going to be resounding in my mind for a long time. I wonder if you could send me the words so that maybe we can have the opportunity to learn the song ourselves.
Will do. Will do.
We could re-watch the video to get the melody as well. But that was so impressive. Pi to 100 decimal places in song form. Who knew that existed? Wonderful.
Matt, did you reveal what the your
I'm glad you asked, because that is next. The mystery object. I'm going to change back to my big screen here. So this is the mystery object, and has anyone given it any other thought? So since the beginning,
Tim's got a very rude suggestion.
I bet he has.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I thought I'd
So
keep quiet.
someone asked if this was a light, and yes, it is. If you turn the switch on, you get a nice
UV curing glue.
Oh, almost so close there, Bob. So close. So there is curing that goes on. At the other end of this, is a little kind of needle, and what comes out of this looks like glue, but it's not glue. This is fascinating. It's like plastic weld kind of stuff, and apparently you can weld almost anything together. So I've got some materials here. I haven't really played with this, so I've got some acrylic and some MDF and some aluminium, and I'm going to see if this plastic weld thing kind of works. One of the beauties of this is that you can, so it's not like glue, so you don't put it along the join, as it were. I haven't practiced this at all because I wanted to show this. So you need to roughen up the edge. This is a file, by the way. Let's give it a bit roughen up. Okay. I have no idea if this is going to work. So apparently you, I need another hand. If Zoom isn't very good for other hands, is it? I'm fascinated to see how this is going to work out. Actually, right. One of the beauties of this is that it's because it's not like glue, it doesn't go off. It doesn't like dry out like glue. It needs that light to do its thing. So I've just squirted it down the edge. I can feel the suspense building.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to try. All right. So I've squirted some of this stuff down the edge there. Okay. So it's not grabbing at all. So now I'm going to get the light. And then just apparently it just takes between 4 and 8 seconds of exposure to this UV LED for this plastic. It's not glue, it's plastic. I'm welding with plastic right now to stick.
What's it called?
It's called Bionic. No, it's not. Hang on.
Is there any dangers from the UV light?
Yeah, it says don't look at the UV light.
What's it called again? Sorry, I was talking over the top of you.
It's called Bondic.
Bondic? B-I-O.
If this works, I'll share the name because it's almost like an endorsement. Okay, right.
Use it for fillings.
Hang on.
In teeth.
Yes, it came from the teeth world. Actually, wow, that is really strong. Oh. Kind of strong. Maybe I should have
when demonstrations go well.
That was quite impressive.
I should yeah. Okay, yeah, medium success. Okay, all right. Metal you get to choose which materials I try to not stick together again. Perspex, MDF, metal. What combination would you like to see?
I see it's £2.50 on Amazon, so I might have to give some a go.
Yeah.
It works underwater, apparently. I was going to try that, but I don't have a fish tank or a glass that I want to stick something inside of. So,
bath.
What would you like to see?
Stick it to the bath.
I don't have a bath here.
Do you remember in the 80s there was some sort of glue, and the adverts always had a guy pasted to a board and then suspended from a helicopter?
From a helicopter.
I'd like you to see that. Yeah, that'd be.
Stick myself to a drone,
As
maybe.
exciting as it is, I'm going to have to say good night. All right.
What are you saying? Watching glue dry isn't exciting.
It's not glue.
Oh no,
it's
sorry, it's not
plastic
glue.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done, Andy. Bye.
While the plastic's curing, when I was Paul, you mentioned about Zigbee for the IKEA, Aldi, and the other lights. Does that sort of rule out those lights for MQTT, or is there some sort of gateway? Are they MQTT over Zigbee as opposed to MQTT over TCP/IP, or
I don't know.
Are they just different?
Like the wireless protocol. So how they communicate over that, I don't actually know.
So Zigbee is an old system that works on 433 megahertz or thereabouts.
So it probably means though it's not a standard, or it's a different standard. It's
not in the same frequency band as
But what I mean is that they're using Zigbee to deliver the data between the devices, and then some completely different protocol for the actual messaging. So what brands are there out there that I could go and buy a light bulb that supports MQTT over Wi-Fi? Anyone there?
Zigbee is an open standard, so you should be able to see how it works. It is an open standard. There's another information called Z-Wave, which isn't. That's like a closed, and you have to pay for it. But Zigbee's an open standard.
Yeah.
This is a try and defeat my green screen from kicking in.
Yeah, I was really upset when I realised you weren't in the micropub. So I was like, oh yeah.
This is a Pi hat called Zoe, Z-O-E, but there's also a version which is on a dongle. It's a Zigbee to, it's a Zigbee hat for the Pi. Zigbee is 2.4 gigahertz. Don't get me started on that, because we worked on it back in the 90s and tried to say that it ought to be in the sub-gigahertz band, but Philips came along and moved it up to 2.4 gigs, where it really doesn't propagate through walls. The resource I'd point you at to find out more about that is Electrorama. I'll pop it in the link in the chat in a moment. But yeah, I've been playing around with IKEA trad-free bulbs and controllers because they were cheap, and they do there's Zigbee, and MQTT is the general route for doing it. There's a I think it's called Zigbee to MQTT. It's sort of the favoured way of doing this sort of thing for the enthusiast market. So I'll pop a couple of links in for you.
But so like the light bulb, the Philips Hue light bulb, then they're not talking MQTT, but then you're using a gateway that does a conversion from whatever protocol the light bulb is talking to MQTT, so it can then go out to a message broker and then be controlled through all the other things we've discussed this evening.
And Node-RED is one of the favoured ways of doing things. In fact, I've just been struggling, because I'm not a software guy, to get the Mosquito broker onto the Pi, and then I'm teaching myself a lot as I go on the MQTT side of things as well. I'll pop a couple of links in.
All right, so there are two versions of the Zigbee, because I'm sure I've got a pair of them about 10 years old that work on 433 meg rather than 2.4.
Okay, we were originally pushing for what became Zigbee, or what became 802.15.4, and then became Zigbee piled on top of that. We were saying it should be 868 and 915 in the States. Yes, 433 would have been even better, but it was quite crowded back then. And so actually now there is a move to rekindle the sub-gigahertz version of Zigbee, which has been there all along, but people generally didn't use it. And it was the version that became far more popular was 2.4 gig.
Okay, yeah.
And all of the problems that brings.
Yeah. Yeah, I think vague distance, I remember there were frequency options. Maybe that's what I've got. I say it's about 10 years old that I've had these pair. I got them for a special project, but I did use them, but the project sort of ceased, and then they're in my box of bits, waiting to be used for another fine day.
What kind of range have you had with Zigbee networks from node to node?
You're the expert.
I have had probably 2 or 3 feet, because that's as far as I can be bothered to try. Once I get it working, then I'll go and see how far it will reach. But at the moment, it's yeah, I have installation problems and that sort of thing.
We're very keen to know what you would expect to get then.
The claims are 150 meters free space, which probably means just about through a couple of walls in your house. Most people say that they can get pretty much through their house, or you might want to have one of your repeater nodes somewhere central in the house, so that everything is only having to hop halfway through your house.
If you happen to be mains powered for some other project, what's the power limit you can kick out on the Zigbee frequencies?
It'll be the same as was it 10 milliwatts?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, so
it's one of the exempt license exempt bands, so it's very limited, very controlled. I can't really add much more to the range that what Lawrence is. Mine was, again, that my application was very short range. It was part of a brain control interface system, so it was just going from somebody's head to the desktop, mainly my head to the desktop as a trial. But yeah.
You say Brent control?
Brain
oh, brain
control.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I think we've given up trying to control Brent. They're beyond help.
Yep. Well, I have worked on a project. I used some HC12 wireless transceivers for a project. Just sending start playing stuff down a series of nodes. That worked really well to about 90 meters, give or take. But I'm about to do some kind of similar project with a Zigbee network, where we're hoping for hundreds of meters kind of range in a sort of non-urban, non-household kind of environment. I'm working with Dan on that, so
be able to put it high up as well, maybe.
Yeah. So we are going to stand up a Zigbee network gateway in Margate for this project, and maybe after that. Why? Sorry.
Can we ask why?
It's a project to difficult to say. It's a project to. I'm just going through.
I mean,
you don't have to say
constraints about what I can say.
Yeah, sure.
It's a set of sensors that can detect if a drone is within an airspace. For example, around the Gatwick Airport kind of area.
Okay.
So you can then do something about it. That's what the project is, and so you
thought they'd turn Manston into a lorry park nowadays.
Yes, you don't need sensors to detect lorries there. You just
flying lorries.
Yeah, they need sensors to test how full the portaloos are, I think.
Yeah.
But networks like
say so.
Zigbee networks, there's really interesting, from a Thanet point of view, a couple of people have been talking about using that kind of network to sense how full bins were, to then direct the bin lorries to only empty the full ones, or even just give you the information to know where you need more bins because they fill up by 9 a.m.
I mean, that sounds like a good idea, but my bins are round the back of my house, and I have to drag them round down the side and stick them out the front of my property every week.
Yeah.
So the bin men don't come round, and you know.
It's more the ones on the street corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
We've got massive bins now in Broadstairs. I think so.
Oh, what, the commercial ones?
Well, no, just like on the promenade, they've got some huge ones. But I think the problem is they empty them on a schedule, and that schedule doesn't sort of square up with reality. So
yeah.
I think the problem is that they're treating the symptom, not the cause. The cause is too much packaging on everything, and we should be able to unwrap something, and that thing just poofs up into the air and just creates, you know, a shower of flowers or something instead of something you have to put in a bin and someone has to come and collect.
And the other thing that I was going to say about range, you might be able to get 150 meters out of something, but at what data rate, what speed, how many errors are you going to get?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to get, I mean, are you anything to do with the amateur radio community?
I'm not, no.
No. There's one ham on there. There's various data modes that you know, are claimed to be below noise working, but they're very slow.
Yeah.
Depends what sort of speed, what sort of throughput you need on it. But there are systems around that could do that. But it's one thing that I was trying to experiment with the microbit a year or so ago to see what sort of distance I could get between, you know, using their radio connectivity. I didn't get very far with it. The way in which Mqtt and Python report the RSSI is different. For some reason, JavaScript and Mqtt decided to start off at, I think, a level of -42, whereas Python takes it, you know, starts it off at 0. It didn't quite make sense to me. Is why they'd done it that way. There didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason.
Is that just different libraries interpreting the hardware?
Well, I think it still uses the same base sort of. I don't know what part of the platform. It's very. It's a multi-layered onion, that thing. I love the microbit. I also hate it. But sorry, Lawrence. You must know. You must know Dave Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine. So
yeah, good chap.
Yeah.
And I can. I can talk late into the night on microbit, but if Matt has been doing a bit of back channel here, that maybe I might pop and do a bit of a talk on it at some point.
Good.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent.
Yeah.
But last month we had an overview of the awesomeness of the microbit from John and the Steamettes, and it would be fascinating to hear a bit of a backstory of its development from you, Lawrence.
Yeah, often like why certain decisions were made as well is really interesting as well.
Yeah, we'd all like to know that. No, I jest. Were you involved with a version 2 development?
Yes, yeah. I just did some of the just a bit of testing on the microphone side of things. So yeah, I was
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
For the best part of a year.
Yeah.
And that, but yeah, I don't know very much about the version 2. I have got a few here covered in talcum powder, because that's why we're seeing whether that killed the microphones. But yeah, some really interesting stuff being done with keyword recognition. There's a whole load of things. Company called Edge Impulse, formed by a couple of guys who were on the microbit team, doing some really nice stuff with TinyML.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Weil was sort of singing the praises of Edge Impulse the other day, and that. Yeah, I've got 101 things and projects to sort out, and I keep saying today, don't give me any more ideas, because I've got to get some of these sort of completed before I move on. But I get easily distracted and sidetracked and think, oh, that sounds fun to play with. But I'm resisting the temptation. I want to play. I haven't got a version 2 yet, but that's a story in itself. But I've got enough. Well, I've got a load of version 1s, and I've got enough audio amplifiers to play around with the sound, and I'm sure I can find a microphone to attach to it. But I was interested. I didn't realize how easy it is using the Python library. Not that I don't know much about Python programming, but it's words, isn't it? It's keywords. So I'll get scripts with that to actually produce sound coming out of it. I don't know how good a quality it is, but I'm not expecting miracles off the hardware. Why on earth? My big bone with the blooming microbit. Why on earth did you put the ADC reference to the power supply, to the battery?
Save it for the talk. Save it for the talk.
That's a very focused question. We'll give Lawrence a couple of moments to think of a good reason.
Yeah.
But
is Lawrence going to apologise? Is that
no?
But in the meantime, so this meetup happens once a month. So the next one is on the 29th of April. I think Lawrence might have agreed to talk to us in more depth about the microbit. So maybe that question could be answered then. But he might also back out of it after this experience.
Sorry.
So, if anyone else would like to talk about anything to do with technology or their Thanet experience or anything, there's room to do that. That's great. So please send me an email at matt@thegeekery.uk. Paul today pointed out that I was being a bit cavalier with sending out the Zoom invitation on the open internet. And I think, Paul, you've had some bad experiences of people invading your Zoom and being a bit profane or worse than that, perhaps. What happened there, Paul?
Well, I'm part of a photography group, and they have like a weekly speaker who speaks about, the photography and shows their images and stuff. And one day we just had some, of course, when you've got 30 participants, it's very hard to see if there's anyone there who, you don't know or looks a bit suspicious and that kind of thing when you've got that many people. So some people got in and they started using the screen annotation feature where you can write over the screen, and they were just they started writing all these racist messages. Of course, when when this happens and you're not expecting it, it's very hard to manage the situation. So we ended up having to just end the session because we tried to restart it and they came back again, and we still don't know how they got the meeting ID because it's not the links aren't openly published, and they do have a password. So yeah, it was it's pretty horrible.
There was an incident with Raspberry Pis as well, a month or two after the start of lockdown. Where some young gentleman thought everyone there would be very interested in some parts of his body that probably they weren't really that interested in. And it took a while to work out who that, which participant it was, so the host could kick them out. So yeah, I've not seen it happen since. I've been on quite a lot of Zooms.
To be honest, that could happen in not a pre-pandemic meetup where you all go and meet in a pub or a room somewhere. Someone could drop their trousers or lift their skirt or whatever.
Oh.
But I suppose
I don't know what sort of meetings you go to. I've never been one like that. I think it's more likely to happen in the you know, what's the word, in the safety of a virtual world.
Yeah, people are at arm's length.
I mean,
and
I'm sure if there was in a,
maybe.
you know, in the pub or something, or in the club room, there'd be 101 people that would jump on the person. And
yes, that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, their fist might have accidentally sort of like slipped.
There's also that identifying people, you know, who are they and whatever. But so thanks to Paul's advice, I'm going to try and be a little bit more responsible with the sending out the Zoom invite somehow, and not quite sure how to do it because there's far too many channels of communication, from meetup.com and the Facebook group called Thanet Technology and email. It's overwhelming. I lose so many conversations because I can't remember what channel someone contacted me on. So I'm kind of leaning towards having some kind of mailing list through geekery.uk, and just making that the thing. But then you have a limited. I've been made aware of some dangers, and but then it's balanced with actually making it available for normal people, which the vast majority are. But in a way, it'd be quite interesting to be Zoom bombed, just to
Really?
experience it and see how to react to it it's still technology, and misuse of technology is as interesting as good use of technology, I think.
That's one thing that worries me about the Internet of Things. I think the technology is so far ahead of legislation. It worries me just how it's going to all develop out. But coming back to your own situation there, Matt, I keep wanting to call you Mark. Sorry. What's your audience range? I noticed you got some kids with us tonight. Is that normal, or is it
they've been
only,
here
or,
for the thanks to John who leads the STEAMettes. Yes, they've been here for the past 2 or maybe 3 meetings, John.
I think you've got to be more careful if you've got children in
they are here with their parents. That's the main thing.
Well, I'm sure some of their parents wouldn't like to see graphic displays of various things or hear various words.
No one would, no.
Yeah,
you raise a fair point, but I think that's the responsibility of the parents. They're coming to a meeting that isn't for children, but it's a good meeting that children should be able to come to, and if there's a blanket ban on kids coming to a meeting like this, it's a bad state of society, I think. Yeah, there are risks. There are risks walking to the park, frankly. So yeah, you have to be careful, but
I think you've got to strike a balance.
You can't be too cotton wool.
I was going to say you could have a quote bouncer, i.e. everybody has camera off and chat off unless they go via a bouncer, sort of thing.
It's a minefield.
Yeah.
Matt, on the Zoom, you can actually increase the security quite a lot. So I was in the Raspberry Pi meeting as well, and it was quite interesting to see how it works. But on Zoom, you can stop someone writing on someone else's whiteboard. You can stop more than one person having a screen share so they can't be interrupted. You can also mute, not allow anyone to unmute. And then if you right click, you can ask them to unmute. So you can mute everyone, and then only the 2 speakers will get an invite. Do you want to unmute? Then you say, yeah, I want to unmute. And then Andy Stanford-Clark can talk. And then no one else can talk or interrupt. And there is a thing, stop screen sharing. If you click stop screen sharing in security, then it will stop everyone's screen sharing. And there's, I think the bottom one is no audience participation at all. I can't remember. The very bottom of security basically cuts everything, but keeps you in there.
I saw something today about making a collaborative makerspace kind of thing, and it was talking about rules and that kind of thing. they made a rule 0, which was don't make me make any rules. And it's all about being responsible enough to exist in that space without having to have rules applied to everyone. So anyone that comes to this space should be responsible enough not to do anything stupid that requires us to police it, because that then becomes broken as a little like mini society or something. There must be some unspoken rules of behavior that you just assume will happen. And yeah, it can go wrong when you get nutters joining like Paul found out, but you can't live your life expecting that to happen. You should live your life expecting people to be responsible and happily being in this space together and being excellent to each other. If it goes wrong,
you only have the right.
Cross that bridge when you come to it. But I think you can spend a lot of energy and get in there.
I think you've only got the right to be disappointed. Sadly.
But so far, touch wood, we haven't seen any bad behaviour.
I don't. Haircut's pretty criminal.
If you're looking to expand and get schools on board and other organisations that are dealing with kids, I think you're going to have some rules. And
this is not for
safeguarding
kids.
policy.
If John and the STEAMettes want to be here, absolutely fine. But I'm not reaching out to encourage them to come here. And the same with other organisations. Like there's an amazing charity called Porchlight that looks after vulnerable adults. And I've started engaging with the local Porchlight charity because there's a huge problem with the digital divide. There's millions of people that don't use the internet and millions more that only use it for entertainment, and they're being left behind because they don't have the confidence to use computers or the ability to use computers. And that's a vulnerable community as well. But I wouldn't invite that community here necessarily. I wouldn't invite kids here. If they choose to be here, that's a different thing, I think. Especially, the parents of the STEAMettes have been responsible because they were sat with them, they were encouraging them to listen to these incredibly technical conversations, and that's a wonderful thing. And I wouldn't want to stop that, but it's the parents' responsibility to police, I think is not quite the right word, to police their daughters, in this case, experience of the internet. You can't get involved with that stuff. That's the parents' job.
Matt, just forgetting the under 18s, for us group here, we're all adults, and if we'd been Raspberry Pi and I was there, we wouldn't have been too offended. But what actually happened, which was bad, was there was a 15-minute break where we weren't hearing, we were going to close down the meeting, join. We nearly chucked out Sukin Pang because some thought his name, sounded strange, but we actually know him in person. So the problem was, and today you had Andy Stanford-Clark, who was such a good talker. I've come along again, and I got some of our Essex STEAMettes to come along again. So we wouldn't want that to have been interrupted. So it's, forgetting the under 18s, knowing what you're doing with the Zoom security, having maybe slightly, so Ed was interrupting Andy Stanford-Clark a couple of times, which was okay, but maybe someone else might have been, a little bit less intelligent in their interrupting.
Thanks, Andy.
So, so as regards that, it makes for a better meeting overall, and just muting people. You muted, I think Sukin had his radio on or something, and you muted him.
I'm just looking at the options that I've got. So I'm sorry, Lawrence, I just clicked on you, and I have the ability to put you back in the waiting room, to remove you, to report you.
Go straight to jail. Don't pass go. Don't collect £200.
I don't know what happens if I click report or whatever, but
don't. He's all right.
Try it. Yeah.
I won't do that. No, I won't. But it's a really important thing to talk about. But you know, when the Raspberry Pint started, we used to meet up in a pub right close to London Bridge, and any old nutter could walk into a South London pub.
And we did.
And we did. There were a couple of low points when the room was booked by someone else and we had to have the meetup over a pool table or in a cold picnic table outside. But we didn't have any particular nutters come up and interfere.
I'll go back to it. I realise what you said about it being problematic, but the idea of having a recorded version where you know that nothing happened and everything in it is an interesting and a sort of publishable edit, maybe.
Well, I don't really want to publish these online because the Steamettes were here and just for that reason, really.
Oh no, but not. I'm just saying the speakers, i.e., not the text, just the speakers.
Yeah.
So that at least
you can cut out.
Yes, I should edit them.
Yeah, because you did Spotlight as well.
Yeah.
And certainly with Andy Stanford-Clark, he told you to do a spotlight on him, so you could no one wants to listen to this conversation on the internet anyway. But you've got two good talks. If you
I was so lucky to get them here. Really, it's quite flattering for Thanet or Margate or this community to get them to stand up and talk.
Yeah.
Follow that, as they say.
It's the magic of Zoom because it's online. I mean, he's in the Isle of Wight and he can't leave, so he can Zoom. He came to the Essex Steamettes, and John came to the Essex Steamettes, which is how John met him. And I couldn't believe he joined. He stayed for an hour and a half talking to everyone. So he did pretty much the same talk, and your one was 45 minutes. But because the girls were talking back to him and they were showing some things that they'd done, it lasted an hour and a half, and it was 6:30 and he had to go for his dinner. But he would have probably gone on for another half an hour if it hadn't been so late.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about both of the talkers today, and you lot as well, the whole audience. It's just the level of enthusiasm in technology and what we can do with it. It's brilliant. It's a real celebration of technology.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you based on, Thanet?
Margate.
Okay.
And the geekery is in Margate as well.
Whereabouts? Not that I know it too much.
Victoria Road, near the old deaf school, just up the road from the mulberry tree. If, like me, you use pubs as your landmarks.
No, I don't drink. It's against my religion.
It's near. Well, it's in Margate, quite on the edge of the old town.
Right. Okay. Yeah. About all I know is the seafront, and I can't remember whatever that Dreamland.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah.
From when I was a kid, I used to go down there.
Well, I know Andrew's been to Margate because he helped out with the raspberry jam that we had here. Bob lives in Margate. John, you live. Bob, do you live in Margate?
I live in Ramsgate.
Oh, I'm so sorry to taint you with the Margate brush there.
Yes.
I live in Margate.
Ed, you are in Margate?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Best place to be. Ramsgate, Schmamsgate.
Yeah. I'm in Broadstairs.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, John.
Oh, the posh bit. Posh. Yeah, the posh part.
I heard, so Thanet's got, for people who don't live in Thanet, there are 3 main towns in Thanet, and they're so close you can almost walk between them. Margate, Ramsgate, Margate, Broadstairs and Ramsgate. When I first moved here, someone described them as Margate, there's 3 sisters, And Margate's the fun party girl. Broadstairs is the pretty the pretty girl, and polite, and Ramsgate's the working girl.
What do you mean by working girl?
I didn't ask them that. I moved on from that conversation pretty quickly.
Do you all meet up, like, apart from coronavirus? When it's not coronavirus, do you all meet up and do things together, or is it just like a pub meet?
Well, Thanet Technology, I started this group to meet other geeks when I first moved here in 2017. And we did just meet up in pubs and just move around. But we've also had some events, like a couple of Raspberry Jams. And there was a geek festival that happened at Dreamland in Margate a couple of times. And I had a stall there to do coding with Minecraft on Raspberry Pis, that kind of thing.
Do you know Bethany Fentelman? No. And she was, well, she still is a young lady, but she was a sixth former when I first came across her. I got involved from, I can't remember. I think it was Andy, wasn't it? It was either Andy, Southend Tech, or it was David Whale.
Yeah, we met her at Mozfest, and then we said, oh, you should do a Kent Raspberry Jam.
Yeah, she ended up doing one, or involved in one down at Dreamland, but I couldn't go to that. But she also put on a Raspberry Pi a jam, didn't she? Is it Gravesend? Went over to that.
Yeah,
I'd like to get to know her then.
I think she's sort of like lost interest in that. I don't think she's doing it anymore, is she? Her interest in pies and everything.
But last jam, I had a look, and the nearest one I think was in Southend. Nothing else in Kent, nothing in Maidstone or anything.
Is Dreamland the game arcade place? Am I misremembering?
It's a retro theme park. It's got one of the oldest, if not the oldest, wooden roller coasters.
What's there used to be, as you came out of the station on the right hand side, if I remember correctly, there was a sort of gaming arcade place. All I can say is, when I was at Poly, the Thames Poly Hacker Society visited there for a day out. We had the student union hired a coach, and we all went.
Had a Beano
to look at the. It was a bean trip, whatever they call it, to see how technology was being used in entertainment. Back then, it kind of wasn't. Well, But Hang On, I seem to remember the motorbike thingy. But that was my, anyway.
Yeah.
So I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting when I spoke first of the Essex DMETs are doing MQTT, and Nadine, who was here, you can control her Christmas tree. She's taken it down, but she had a Christmas tree behind. It's on Twitter, you can see it. And we're looking to do some other things. So I spoke to John to see if we could do MQTT with his DMETs and possibly some radio things. So Ed's a radio ham, and Essex ham are here in Essex, obviously. And Pete spoke to John about a few things. So would your adults in the rest of the tech group, would you be interested in doing some things as well on MQTT?
Absolutely, I would, definitely.
On the 22nd of May to 13th of June is the Estuary Festival. So I don't know if you know about that in Kent, but basically it's North Kent, South Essex, and we do art things, and a lot of them are going for a walk along the river and write poetry in your feelings. But I thought it'd be quite cool if we could do some MQTT and be sitting here on a Zoom, and then I could press a button and your lights could go blue.
There was a brilliant project in Bristol where they kind of instrumented street furniture. So, for example, you could sidle up to a bin and say, "Hello, bin, how are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine, but I can't turn around. Can you tell me what's behind me?"
I think Andy and I are laughing because we know an artist that wanted to do something like that over in Chelsea.
She wanted to pay us $4 or $5 grand, and I looked up the people who did in Bristol, and they charge minimum of 18 and about 25 for quite an average bells and whistles setup. So it was texting things, texty bin and texty tree.
Yes.
So
I would love to make a bin that if someone came up to a full bin and try to stuff something in there, say, why are you doing this? Why are you force feeding me this? Go to my mate up the road, he's empty.
Yeah.
You know, and have the bins talk to each other so they knew which ones were empty or whatever. Add a bit of personality to encourage people to not do the bad things that they do in, well, some of the bad things they do in Margate, like littering.
I keep thinking that surfaces from time to time when I've got my 5th phone call, recorded announcement from Amazon telling me that my Prime account or is whatever, a problem with it. I think I'm going to make my own call steering system that looks out for numbers. If it's not on my list of known callers, then it goes through the rigmarole. Press 1 for this.
I've got that on my phone.
You've got
BT do a secretarial service on a phone that basically, if they phone through, they have to speak to somebody and say who they are, and then it comes through to you.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's on the phone. Nothing. It's on the phone.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to make one for nothing for fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of those.
He was going to be a millionaire. That's your plan, to be a millionaire, gone down.
Yeah. It's just these companies, they what's the word? Putting it politely, irritate me when they do this. If they've got something important to say and they want to send talk to me, then get somebody to talk to me. I don't want to talk to a machine. Thought I'd give them some of their own medicine. You know, give them the runaround, give them 7 numbers, tell them how important the call is to me, and then once they've selected their option, have them waiting for half an hour. I would just, you know, we put you through to a caller as soon as possible. All our lines are busy. All these brain cells are tied up at the moment. So please hold the line. Be patient.
Give them an 0898 number.
Oh yeah. That'd be best. That's good. Yeah.
However, we are in a phase where the lockdown might be releasing a little bit in a couple of weeks' time. I think 29th of March is where the rule of 6 or 2 household comes back into play. And then I think the 12th of April, the pub beer gardens open again. There's a milestone and a half. My birthday is the 13th of April, so I'm going to go
and mine
hell for leather on the 12th. I've got a green pass from the missus. I'm going to be
I'm giving a
I'm
talk
going for a
with Bob.
pub crawl, hopefully. A pub crawl. Can you remember what pub crawls were?
Oh goodness.
Well, it was only just before Christmas, but they weren't real. I don't know. So I'm quite excited by that possibility, but also daunted because
pub crawls around the city of London. Have you ever done that? Have you somebody works up in London or? Yeah,
I lived in London for a few years.
I live in Tooting.
Yeah, try to do all the pubs, all the ones that sold real ale. I can't remember how many there were. It's far too many.
Well, there's enough just in Southwark.
That wouldn't surprise me.
There's a pub that has like 200 whiskies just round the corner from the Miller where the Raspberry Pint used to be. Oh, I'm reminiscing now, but yeah. So all of this opening up of life again is making me think about Thanet Technology and if it should be a physical meetup again. I said earlier on that I'd like to keep that Zoom thing going, but also have people physically come here and maybe in the afternoon work on some projects like the animatronic chimp's head that we've got. I'll go and get that in a minute. You know, so we can actually do some stuff as well as just listen to people talk about technology.
What how does your geekery work then? Do you pay? Do you have to be a member of have an annual subscription, or do you turn up and pay by the day, by the half day, by the hour? Or
well, there's 4 desks here. I've got 1 desk, and the other 3 I'm going to rent to a permanent. It's like a small co-working space for like people that do digital stuff or
Okay.
need to use 3D printers, CNC and electronics and coding, that kind of thing. But I also want it to be a physical focus for technology generally. So demonstrating tech like 3D printing and all of that sort of stuff, or code clubs, or a place for people to come and work on community projects. I was really interested with that. I think he called it a digital tongue. I'm trying to think of projects that are like specific to Thanet. So something about water quality or beach quality or how full the bins are or whatever. I don't know.
How full the M20 is. Yeah.
But I want to this place needs to catalyze a larger community that can actually be here at one time, that is interested in technology and sharing skills around technology and making the young people realize that art isn't the only career that's available to them, which seems to be a big thing in Thanet in a minute. Yeah. They can learn technology in their bedrooms and really get into it, develop some skills, and off they go.
Yeah. How do you, Lawrence? Yeah. How do you get your funding then? How are you funded? Is it council run, or do you apply for grants from various organisations?
I did get some funds from CCADS, the Southeast Creative Arts and Digital. I can't remember what it stands for, but they paid for a third of some of this fit out. I did get some money from the coronavirus kind of. I'm not able to open up for hot desk kind of things like most businesses got as well.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just me and my company just making a cool place for me to work in, and hopefully getting other people to come and work here as well.
How big is the geekery? How much space do you have?
It's 30 square meters. If I unplug, I can give you a tour.
Yeah.
Hold on, everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, right. So I'm going to the front door. I won't go outside because it's a bit dark. So there's a bit of a woodworky kind of thing going on there. Some power tools over here. So this is kind of like the dirty end of the geekery. I'm not quite sure what you can see really. And then it goes, these are French cleats. Have you heard of French cleats?
No.
Amazing stuff. Amazing system really. So that's this is I've been watching lots of YouTube videos on lockdown, so I call this a solder station. If I could do an American accent, I would do that, but I can't do American accents. But French cleats, I mean, you can just pick them up and put them down somewhere else. Like just put them anywhere.
Nice.
So on the back, there's a 45-degree angle thing. So everything on this wall is all hooked on the same kind of thing.
So do you buy the wooden rails?
I got a carpenter to come in to do it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there's my Prusa 3D printer on a shelf that hooks up. So with two hands, you can pick it up and put it somewhere else. And that screen's on a cleat as well. And I've just figured out how to power a Raspberry Pi off its power over Ethernet, which I've been wanting to do for years, and I've finally done it. I've got around to understanding power over Ethernet, which is so exciting. I just need to figure out how to power the screen off the same Ethernet cable, because I've still got the power cable going to the screen as well as Ethernet.
Right.
Nearly good, but then there's some storage stuff for projects, and that. Oh, the wall of joy currently is quite small, but I want to make this bigger, full of this is XB kind of stuff. Solenoids, RFID kind of stuff. And what else is in here? Oh yes, a Snapmaker 2, which is I've only used that. I've only been using it for laser cutting, but it can do 3D printing and CNC as well. What else
is it? Laser cut.
This sort of stuff. I've only gone up to
acrylic MDF.
Yeah, it does those. I've only done plywood up to 5mm so far.
Okay, yeah.
But it can engrave leather and that kind of stuff. This is the animatronic chimp.
Right.
Let me do that.
Everyone needs one of those.
Yeah. So I want people to come here and hack this and make something cool out of it. This was donated by Genetic Moo. It's full of solenoids and all sorts of stuff. Can move its eyebrows, eyeballs, mouth, and it's got sensors. It can tell if it's been patted, but it came without the remote controls, so we can't do anything with it until we actually connect it to an Arduino or something like that.
Yeah. Brilliant project.
So it's not a massive space, but
yeah, big enough though.
It's a functional space, I think, and there's a big space outside as well.
What are those blue roller? Where does that lead out to? It looks like it's an old fire station.
Well, it's Fuller's Yard, and I don't think you're going to be able to see anything. So there's a light over there. Yeah.
Just a big empty space, really.
Oh
yeah, and there's the sign outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very quiet place, and there's an ambulance station just across the way. So there's always paramedics on hand, which is probably a good thing.
What, in case you've cut your finger off with a saw?
Yeah.
Solar burns.
Are you marketing it as a bit of a maker space, or are you looking at?
Well, no, I don't think it's big enough to be a maker space, and I don't want it to be. It's not big enough for people just to for it to be a maker space. But and the Margate School on High Street is a better place for that. They're going to make a fab lab up there on I think the first floor.
Oh right, yeah, that's sort of just a big empty space before, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing what the Margate School are doing there. They've got a proper big laser cutter in there already. So I think the Margate School is the fab lab of Margate or Thanet.
That's good, because I was looking for one recently and I draw a blank, just for a decent laser cutting, Couldn't find
you can always come here and use the Snapmaker 2. The bed size is just over 300mm cubed.
Right. Yeah.
320, 330, 340 kind of cube.
Yeah.
There is a laser cutting place behind B&Q in that industrial estate.
Oh, really?
And they do some amazing project. But
right.
I've asked them to give a talk to us, but they haven't responded so far. But they're very busy. But yeah, the Margate School have got a proper kind of floor standing laser cutter kind of thing going on there. I'm not quite sure what they're doing with the Fab Lab at the moment, but I want the geekery to be a place where 3 of the people work, so there's a bit of a professional a coding, bit of R&D kind of prototyping group here where we can all help each other, solve problems or a bit of a support. Now, I'm self-employed, so I don't, and all my clients are on the other side of London. And I just want to, have a bit of a support community when I'm working, people doing similar things. But I also want it to be a focus for a larger community every now and again, like every Thursday have a code club, or every last Thursday a Thanet Technology thing where the people interested in tech know that they can come here or join a Zoom meeting or something. Maybe try and find some community project to work on for some good reason.
What line of business are you in?
My background's in the defense industry, and I still get most of my paid work from that area. I've also worked in the more creative industries like AV at music festivals and that kind of stuff, and I do projects for artists quite a lot as well, doing the techie stuff for an artist.
So are you looking for people with a sort of the defense background? Are you looking for people with more artistic
No, anyone that's interested in tech, that does cool stuff for tech. I don't really care if it's for defense, art, or whatever, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm still not sure how it works. I mean, did I have to buy in? To have to pay you so much per annum to rent the space?
To have a desk here, it's I'll charge per month to have a desk here.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's all a bit weird with the lockdown thing, and no idea what the demand is. But like the going rate for a laser cutter seems to be 25 quid an hour to come and use a laser cutter.
Yeah. Oh, that's cheap.
Example.
Over here, it's at 30 odd pounds an hour.
When did I say 25? I meant 35. Sorry.
Yeah.
To you, 50.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah.
But for me, the root cause, because my daughter's just turned 4, and she's going to grow up in Margate, and a couple of teacher mates and people have said, they've said that kids don't have aspirations here, and I don't know how true that is, but this is what a couple of teacher friends have said to me. But lots of kids are getting into art because of Turner Contemporary and lots of art stuff going on here, and I think that there should be somewhere for people to at least experience technology and see if that sends a shiver down their spine instead of art. That option, I want that option to be there for my daughter and everyone else's kids, and the adults as well.
I know I've done a few schools careers fairs over in Essex, and I think the aspirations for a lot aren't there. Especially for the females, for the girls, they want to be hairdressers or nail technicians. At the best, they want to be a veterinary nurse. You think, well, surely you got to look at being a vet or something. I don't understand that, but I think it's part of the conditioning. That certainly for the hairdressers, it's been the family business, or not. Not the family business, but the family sort of line of employment.
Well, that's fair enough, but I think I just want to give options for people to have other experiences.
Oh, I agree, and I mean, so talking to some of these young ladies and say, "What do you want to do?" They say, "Well, I'm not interested in technology. I want to be, a dancer, or I want to be work in the theatre." You say, "But do you realise how much technology there is there?"
But
they don't understand it, appreciate it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a dancer as well. I do Lindy Hop, and I love the Lindy Hop thing. You can be a dancer, you can be a coder at the same time. That's a fairly new thing. The lifelong career is well dead. I thought I'd worked for BAE Systems for my whole life. That company was like a family to me. And I was made redundant, and That's the modern life. There is no
Yeah.
one sock fits all for
No.
feet. Is that even a thing? I don't know.
My son, when he was about 5, he wanted to be a doctor, look after people. Then a while later, he changed his mind. So I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to be a dad. And so I was trying to explain to him that you can be a dad and a doctor. You don't have to be just one thing, you know.
It's not a career being a dad. It's not a career choice.
Certainly
not one I'd make again.
Commitment, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
They're all grown up now and they still come and bother me.
Yeah.
But a couple of years ago, the Margate School, Genetic Moo organised this as part of Now Festival in Margate, and they had a week of digital stuff. Ed, you did.
I did a concert there. Yeah,
you did a concert there, didn't you? Yeah. It was an amazing week, and my little part of that, I took my workshop into the Margate School. I put it in a dome, like a dome.
Geodesic dome, wasn't it?
A geodesic dome, and I sat there making a self-playing ukulele. I didn't finish the project, which was a good representation of most of my techie kind of projects. So that kind of way. But I did that to demonstrate what engineers do that isn't in a boiler suit hitting a car with a spanner kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. The highlight for me was when I got that 3D printer there, and I was just printing like a stock castle kind of thing with a helical stairs inside that you can't make in any other way. And there were 6 or 7 kids sat around this 3D printer, just watching it in awe. Like it was like they were sat around a campfire outside, just going, oh, "Wow, this is amazing!" And it was just such a wonderful thing that they'd never seen 3D printing, and they were just sat around it, watching it for the first time, and it was it's a shiver down the spine kind of moment. That's what I want the geekery to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob.
I still get a buzz out of my 3D printer now, and I've had it 2 or 3 years. I just love to watch it building stuff. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think everyone in Thanet needs to experience that, whether they like it or not. It doesn't matter. They just need to experience it, and then it's there. Maybe they'll get into it. I don't know.
I've got to go, guys. It's been really interesting. I'll come to the next one.
Ed.
Cheers, Ed.
What was the Geek all about? That event, Geek.
That was organised by Kate and a couple of others from HKD Studios. They've been here 10 plus years, and they're all about spreading the joy of technology as well. And they created this festival of gaming, but with the subtext of once they got people hooked on playing with games, then they introduced the technology behind it, kind of thing.
Did that work?
For several years it did. I think it run out of steam a little bit.
I mean,
and the pandemic really crushed it.
Yeah. Did people stop gaming and become technologists? Did that bit work?
Well, I don't think you would ever see that kind of transition at an event like that, but it's a gateway to that, I suppose. It's for people who are into gaming to come together and game, but then have that discussion around what's behind it. And the geek thing was an introducer, a community builder, I suppose. Like how to identify other geeks.
Yeah, I get quite a few people saying, "Oh, my 10-year-old boy he's addicted to games. He loves games. Can he come along? Because I think he might like to learn to code." And one boy came just before lockdown, and Nadia, one of the Essex teammates, she was 11. She was learning the microbit, and I said, "Come and have a little go at doing the microbit with Nadia." And it's like, "Oh, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to learn how to do games." And I was like, "Well, it's learning coding." And I think Nadia was doing a steady hand game at the time. So that was a little game, and we were doing some some simple game programming and talking about games. But it was just like, oh yeah, I want to code, and he was looking at Unity on YouTube and couldn't make head nor tail of it in C# at 10 without help. So
yeah,
it takes, to go, oh, my boy loves gaming, perhaps we'll get him to do, he might like coding, and after a while it's like, oh, this is hard, I don't want to do it.
Well, I at one of the geek festivals, I set up 4 Raspberry Pis, and there's a special version of Minecraft that comes with the Raspberry Pi, Raspbian, as it used to be called. Minecraft, a bit cut down, but it comes with a Python interface, and I made some worksheets and set these Raspberry Pis up at the Geek Festival, and the kids would sit down and play with Minecraft for 5-10 minutes, and then I'll go up to them and say, oh, you've just spent 10 minutes and you've built a little tiny wall. If you type these 3 lines of code into Python, you can make a wall that's 1,000,000 blocks long. And they'll do that and go, wow, and that would like hook them, and then the worksheet would take them through loops and increments, and those little coding concepts that they need to know, but in a way that they could see results in a world that they actually cared about, and that worked really well. It kind of took the geekery out of it and just gave them something that satisfied, scratched that itch. And yet Unity is pretty complex to get into straight away, but that Minecraft thing and Scratch, and there's so many tools out there, free tools for kids, or for anyone that's wanting to learn coding or hardware or anything techie. There's so many amazing tools to use out there. It's just people need to be shown them and helped to get into that.
When you go and do your events, your outreach events, do you go on your own, or do you have other people from your group going on?
I've had a couple of people come and help me, and like, for example, that time in the Margate school when I was in that dome doing my self-playing ukulele thing, it was all it wasn't prearranged, but Bob came along and helped me out with a new solder tip because my soldering iron stuffed itself up, and gave me some decent soldering, some decent solder with actual lead in it, which really helped. Almost every time, I've still got it, every time I solder I think of you, Bob. Let me show you my beautiful solder station. Look at that. The TS100, a remarkable soldering iron.
I've got one myself.
Really?
I'm thinking to get one. Tell me more, guys.
32-bit processor.
One at a time, no? Go on, Bob, you have a go. Tell me about the TS100.
Well, it's a fantastic little beast. It does more than what you think it does. It's got a 32-bit processor in it, an OLED display, but it does clever things like variable temperature. If you leave it on for a long period of time, it will get cooler, and if you leave it long enough, it actually switches off.
Is it got LiPo? Is it like powered by LiPos, or is it USB?
No, there's a barrel jack in the back of it, and you can run it from between, I think it's about 12 volts and 24, something like that. So you can actually get a drone battery, a 12-volt LiPo battery, and power it off of that. But the amazing thing about it is being temperature controlled, you can do really large solder jobs with it. For instance, if you're doing soldering a drill pad, you can go along the drill pad and it doesn't run out of heat like some soldering irons do. Yes, I really recommend it. They're not cheap, but very, very nice tree. Yeah.
Someone's made an open source kind of version of it as well. It's a bit bulkier, but a bit cheaper as well. But it's got this kind of iron? Is that the phrase for it? So you just undo a couple of element. Yeah. I've got a very pointy tip on there because I was doing some SMD stuff for the first time. But then you got the standard. Yeah, it's just so
the tip and element really combined, is it?
No, so I don't know actually. Maybe the heating element is inside. I'm not sure.
Inside that unit, Matt, there is the heating element. There's a common connection, and there's a connection for a thermistor, and that's how it controls the temperature. So that feeds back to the processor, and I presume you've got the switch mode in there feeding the element.
But the important thing is, it is
tips.
Yes, yeah.
It's very good.
Very easy. I think the main thing is it's not just like every soldering iron I've used. You plug it in and it just heats up until it reaches equilibrium because the heat's emitting from it. This has actually got a feedback mechanism to maintain the temperature, and it heats up so quickly, like 5 seconds. It goes from 0 to 300, and you can and this readout actually tells you the temperature. It just makes it a lot more joyful to do soldering. I don't know, somehow. I don't know why.
How many watts is it?
Good question. I don't think that's relevant, really. It's like if you buy a 60-watt old style soldering iron, it's all about that equilibrium, maybe, and how quick it gets there, and how I don't know how many watts it is, but
it'd be fairly important to size your batteries, whatever your power supply.
Well, I'll plug this into the mains. So
well, I was thinking
on the bottom there's a mains thing, but you can power it from a
battery. Yeah.
I don't know what the wattage is actually. No, I don't.
I guess you could power it from 8 AA cells or something if you really wanted to.
It does come with some kind of connector that goes to that's aimed at lipos. It's a lipo kind of thing.
An XMT, is it? I don't know what they use on radio controlled cars.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah,
or airplanes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, but let me demonstrate the joy of French cleats one more time. Just
French cleats.
Oh, it's great. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah.
And that's the Prusa kind of 3D printer hanging off the shelf there.
Yeah. Good.
Does John and his Kent Steamets, does he help you out at your outreach things? I saw he did the Raspberry Jam.
Yes. So the last Raspberry Jam was in February 2020, so just before the lockdown. And we had that in Faith in Strangers, which is a new hot desking stroke venue, arty kind of place in Margate, in Old Freddy's nightclub. A beautiful place. And then I got in here on the 30th of June, kind of in the middle of lockdowns. So I haven't really been able to have any public events like a Raspberry Jam. I've run a couple of workshops. I did a workshop on called it Sophisticated Streaming, how to use OBS Studio to do things like this, and I've closed off PowerPoint, just do the video production thing where you can set up scenes and switch between them and all that kind of stuff. I did that for a couple of live music venues in Margate as they went to online kind of events instead of in-person kind of things.
Do you charge for these, or are they free ones to promote technology?
They've been free. I have been paid for a couple because people like Crate Studios have got money from the Arts Council to offer courses, and then they asked me to do a course, and I did a course for them, and they paid me a little bit of money.
Yeah. I mean, that's what. To be honest, all my work now, I'm sort of more or less retired. So I think the retirement became sort of like, I was winding down anyway before lockdown, and I think it's sort of like knocked the what's the word, the final nail in the coffin for me doing any more work. But I shall see. But for the last, I've been what's the word? I guess sort of when was it? Since about 2012, I've been sort of like self-employed, freelance consultancy. My background is in medical electronics, so
Okay.
yeah, and I've dabbled a bit in that. And where you've got your stuffed monkey, part of my work was involving real monkeys and getting inside their brains, but that's another story.
Well, I work for the defence industry, and I've had some time with squaddies as well, so it's a bit similar.
Oh, now, yeah, but so for the last, goodness knows, since 2010, 2012, I've been sort of like working a lot in schools as a STEM ambassador.
Yeah, me
helping
too.
sort of like promote technology and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah, oh, I forgot what the heck I was going to say about all this. Yeah, but I've often tried to get sort of like things going for kids, you know. Like one stage I was trying to get a STEM club going, a Saturday morning tech club going, to do what's it? I almost got a school on board where I could use their workshop facilities. They were a bit humming and ahhing about it, but one, I said, well, yeah, because I'll charge the kids for it. Not to make a profit out of it, but just to cover costs. You know, they've got to hire the school premises, got to pay for the caretaker to come in, got to somehow get materials because the school weren't going to provide materials for it. You know, let alone the lighting and heating and any sort of electrical costs.
When you think of all that kind of stuff and the risk assessments they have to do, and all that kind of, it becomes impossible for teachers to do techie kind of, because if they have to spend even 10 minutes setting something up, it's too much for them to do during a day of teaching.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
they're in a very difficult situation. So to teach technology, you need a bit of setup time, or have a place where it's already set up. And schools more and more are having awesome computer labs where the kids just come in and do their stuff and leave, and there's no setup. But there are certain things like soldering, or I don't know, working on a project that isn't easily done in a school because of lots of good reasons. And maybe the geekery could be somewhere where some kids could come and work on something with the right supportive parents, or John Hislop type person that can inspire them and bring them along. And I just want to be make the geekery a place that enables that kind of stuff, encourages it. Maybe
I don't know what it's like over in Kent and down in Thanet, but over here there's this thing where, you know, you've got to provide sort of technology for free for the kids. Yeah, I said, well, yeah, it's no different for a football club or a music. You know, the kids, they pay money to go, you know, their kids go and learn how to play a trumpet or a clarinet or the penny whistle or whatever. They buy kit for them to go and play football or rugby, whatever their sports are. You know, there's lots of things, but when it comes down to technology, oh no, we're not paying out for that. It's still very much seen, I think, by parents and maybe adults as you know, not important or not as important. And I've had arguments with teachers about, you know, can't go to a technology exhibition because it clashes with bloody sports day. The school sports day, not some, you know, as I see it, some important sort of like representing the county or you know,
it is all important. I think everyone should experience sports and cooking and soldering and I don't know, whatever. You know,
I wouldn't
kids,
disagree with that,
adults
mate.
should be exposed to everything.
Yeah,
It's offering the opportunity to people to just
That's
have
what
a
that
go,
man
have a
said
play,
who
or whatever.
photobombed the Raspberry Pi event. Said it's an opportunity to be exposed to everything. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, don't choke on your drink there. Keep it in. Keep it in. Yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah. So I think tonight's been wonderful. I think we had 28 people at the maximum.
That's good. Very good.
The most popular Thanet Technology Meetup was in a pub around the corner a couple of years ago, where we were talking about do you want a hack space in Margate? And 14 people turned up and said, yes, we do. And then nothing happened after that.
Well, yeah, that's about par for the course. You say, do you want a hack space in Margate or whatever? And you get half a dozen people say, yeah. Now, what are you going to do about it? Oh, no, I'm not going to do anything. We just want it.
Yeah. Well, people are busy and all that kind of stuff.
Andy's got the same problem at the moment. You know, people want a tech space in Southend, but they're leaving it all for Andy to do.
Well, that's what it takes. It takes a maven. It takes a leader to make it happen. To go through the hassle.
And
I think we're quite lucky in Margate because we've got the Margate School that are going to stand up a fab lab of some kind.
Is that the only school in Margate? You keep talking about the Margate School. There must be more than one school, surely, in Margate.
Well, it's not a school as such. It's an arts organisation. They do an MA there, so it's
okay.
an
So
arts
it's not like
thing.
a primary or secondary school.
No, it's in the old Woolies building in Margate, if you know it. Woolworths.
Well, Woolworths, yeah. Sorry, well, I don't know it, but I know of Woolworths, yeah.
Yeah, so they've taken over that building and opened it back up into active life. They've got lots of artists' studios there and lots of artists working in there. About a dozen, maybe 13, actively studying an MA.
Okay, yeah.
And hot desking and other stuff. It's a big, beautiful building.
Yeah.
And they are going to, I think, make a fab lab there, and it's a brilliant location for a fab lab.
Oh, good.
I don't know really what the geekery is going to be, but I want it to be a co-working space for 3 other people doing similar stuff to me, so that we can moan about our clients to each other at the very least.
Yes.
But also share our skills with anyone that wants to listen, and have a Thanet Technology face-to-face event here, or a place where on Thursday afternoons we come and hack that chimpanzee, and just maybe figure out how we can get Mqtt to control a chimp. I don't know if anyone's done that before, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
And where else are you going to do it? Well, why not here?
Yeah. I must admit, I mean, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, the 2 biggest things that I miss from going from sort of like PAYE to self-employment is I don't know, it's more than camaraderie between colleagues and that. You hit a problem and you think, I don't know how to go with this. You can have say, here, John or Harry or whatever, any ideas on this, you can brainstorm. It's very difficult when you're self-employed to do that.
Yeah, well, I was made redundant in 2012, about the same time as you. And I left this massive company, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I'd be working for that company forever. But I went back a bit more technical and started playing around with technology a lot more. I trained teachers how to teach coding in the classroom, and worked at music festivals, doing stuff on the big screens, and just had loads of fun.
Good.
And now I'm unemployable. I can't do. I don't want to do a 9-to-5 job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that the Margate? Sorry, Ed. Do you think the Margate School would be interested in doing stuff like the Estuary Festival and doing some Mqtt with you as the Kent expert?
I'm sure they would.
It's the Kent excrement, did you say?
The expert.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know how techie they are. They're not very.
I've interacted with them a little bit.
Yeah.
I would like to get involved with them a little bit more. So, for example, over the summer holidays, the Genetic Moo are in particular talking to them about doing slightly technical classes, isn't the right word, but something with the kids in the Margate school over the summer holidays. And I'm hopefully going to get involved with that, which would be wonderful. Hopefully recreate that moment when I had all those kids sat around a 3D printer going, wow, this is so cool. I need to know more about this. That's just wonderful.
Yeah, good. Anyway, I think I'm going to go. It's gone 10:30 now. It's been a long evening. It's been a great evening, great talks, and some great conversation afterwards, a discussion with all you guys.
Lovely. I've very much enjoyed your company.
Yeah, hopefully I'll do it again. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't think you're on my what's the word? I got to know about this from Andy, Southend Tech. So if you do, I'll do it out of mailing list somehow. I got to get your. Are you on the internet? On the internet. It's getting late. On Twitter.
Yeah. I would go for thegeekery.uk. I'm trying to figure out that as I was speaking. I swapped a couple of messages with Paul about how I need to do this a little bit better. But I think maybe so. There's a Facebook group called Thanet Technology.
Have you got a Twitter account? Is it the Geekery? Yeah.
The Geekery UK.
Geekery UK.
Or maybe .uk. I can't quite remember.
I'll follow that in a minute.
But there's a web page as well, and I've got a subscribe. I've just put on a subscribe button. Thank you, Paul. Again, I did that before this meetup, so you can subscribe to a newsletter on from thegeekery.uk, and I'll announce things through that.
Great.
But there's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well as the web page as well.
Good. Right, keep up a good work. It's been nice talking to you and finding out more about what you're doing over the other side of the water.
Oh, thanks for your interest, Ed.
Yeah.
Hope you come down south sometime.
Well, I mean, ironically, I went to university at Canterbury. So, and my parents used to have a caravan on the Kent coast at Sea Salter, if you know.
Oh, yeah.
That. Yeah. So I know. Well, I used to know Margate and the surrounding Ramsgate and Broadstairs.
So you know the beauty to behold down here.
The beauty to behold. Actually, when I came, especially when I was driving, going down the Thanet Way, just coming over that brow as you're dipping down into the Sea Salter and going up to Whitstable, that always got me when I was a kid going over there. And it still did as an adult. At the times that I've still got one or two friends down that way, Herne Bay, and the occasions that I go down there, it still gets me. I think it's a lovely place, a lovely part of the world to live in. I'm not disappointed that much for where I'm living now, but yeah, it had some character. It had childhood memories for me. I guess now I'm reminiscing.
Well, I grew up in Lincolnshire, so even a slight wrinkle in the road is awesome for me. I'm used to the flatlands of the fens.
Yeah. It's a bit like this over here in Essex, you know. I live in a high spot in Essex. I think we're 100 feet above sea level.
Oh, you're lucky. I learned how to do a handbrake start on my driving lesson on the only bridge in Lincolnshire that can cope with that. But seeing the beautiful cliffs around here is slightly scary to me as a Lincolnshire boy.
Yeah, great. Anyway, I'll be in touch. See you soon. Thanks very much.
Nice to meet you.
Cheers, guys. Good night, everybody. All right.
I think I'm going to head off as well.
Cheers, Paul.
Right. Thanks a lot. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, Matt, it was quite a good meeting with about, I think it was 6 or 7 of our Essex lot popping over as well. We also
thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we go to Preston Raspberry Jam as well, which is a little bit more family orientated. And some of the Essex DMETs have done talks there. So I did see your Facebook video where they did the Mqtt, the Kent Steamets did the Mqtt last time as well. I don't know if they and John are going to do some MQTT with us. They're a little bit shy, he said. And our Essex Steamets, it's almost a year. I think it's 11 months today, approximately. So we started doing online meetings at the end of April. So they're really good, and you know, they run their own activities, and they'll sit there and go, oh, you're muted, you know, click bottom left, and I'll do a screen share. And they're all on screen. So when, you know, other young people come and they're all a bit shy and turn their screens off, but, you know, they're 10, 11, 12, and they're running activities and doing it on Zoom. And they've done lots of, I don't know, did you see, I don't know if people have seen, I'll show you their YouTube videos. So they've even made some YouTube videos. There's a Minimoo glove, which is a Mqtt on a glove, and it's got a speaker. I'll show you here, actually, I've got one. So that's a little project, and they've made lots of videos on YouTube and some other things. So
love it.
You can imagine, I want to connect that to MQTT and then control the lights and your monkey and, you know, whatever else we can do with MQTT. So
that's great. I'll just
I put in the chat, I don't know if you saw it, can you allow pages into your Facebook group, because you currently can't let them in? So,
sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I'm not on Facebook, but I've got Southern Tech and Essex Steamets on Facebook. Can you allow pages into your group?
I don't even know what that means.
So
I see what you mean. Yes, I do. Do I have to do something to? Does that work already?
Yeah, I think one of the settings is allow pages. I tried to join just so that I could say, you know, we'd have some of us coming on today, just to let you know.
Okay. So can you see my screen and what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So Thanet Technology. Thanet Technology is a group which has some limitations. So I need to allow pages.
Allow pages, yeah.
Maybe it's oh, here we go. Who can join the group? So I've got allow both pages and profiles to ask to join the group. That is allowed.
Okay.
In Thanet Technology.
It might be me because I've joined lots of groups. Okay, I'll try another time. Yeah. I've joined lots of groups with my pages, so weird things are happening.
Isn't it wonderful how technology allows us to connect in this way, even between Essex and Kent? Who'd have thought it?
Well, I think it'd be quite cool if we could get the Essex Steamets and the Kent Steamets doing MQTT, sing it over Zoom, and also doing some radio ham, because John and some of your others are ham radio.
Yes.
And I think 3 of their girls are qualified to foundation. So that's
amazing.
Quite cool. Yeah. And Essex ham, we know them, they come to our Raspberry Jams a lot, and they really like our Raspberry Jams.
Yeah, I've met some really interesting kids and adults in the two Raspberry Jams we've done down here in Margate. So, Ian, I'm assuming that you're a friend of John just because you've got a radio ham handle. Sorry, you're very quiet, Ian.
Sorry, we're all members of the Hildeston Radio Society.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been with your Facebook group for quite some
I can't quite hear you, John. You're sorry, Ian. Very, very, very quiet.
I must have changed the microphone settings on my device.
That's better. Yeah, thank you.
Not chat too loud. Yeah, we're members of the Hilderston Radio Society. My first time joining one of your events, because most of the time
I'm sorry, Ian. I can't quite make out what you're saying. It's very quiet, actually. But lovely to see you.
So I'm going to leave now. Thanks everyone. Thanks Matt for organising.
Cheers, Andy. Hope to see you again. Let's
yeah,
hopefully you'll be able to join up with John and do some cool steametting.
Yeah. So I've actually got an Andy at Southend Tech, which isn't showing, but it's actually started screen sharing. That's actually my mum. She doesn't know what she's doing, so she's actually Zoom bombed us. I think she was watching. I got to watch the first couple of talks, so I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go downstairs and stop the screen sharing. And
That's funny.
Okay, see everyone.
Bye bye.
I'm gonna leave now, Matt, because I don't want to be the last one at the party.
Okay,
right.
well, very cool.
Fantastic night, really interesting.
It was great talks, wasn't it?
Did you see that? We can see you.
Sorry?
I don't know if that was Ian.
Yes, no, that was Andy from Southend saying to his mum, "We can see your Facebook page." Hello, Richard.
Hi. Oh, I've got mute on, haven't I?
No, we can hear you.
Hi there. Yeah. Hi there. Thanks for inspiration.
Oh no, where are you?
I'm in Dover.
Excellent.
But I've got friends in Thanet, so I'm often up that way. Yeah. Or I often go cycling along. Oh, my cat's just moaning at me. Hang on. Here he is.
Hello.
Yeah, I often go like cycle along the by the coast on the Viking Trail.
How did you hear about Thanet Technology?
Oh, there was a. I can't remember how I heard about it. Probably through Meetup, actually. Yeah, Meetup, and I came to an event there in Margate, messing about with Raspberry Pis and stuff. About a year.
Was that in Faith in Strangers?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, year and a quarter ago, before lockdown, I think. Yeah.
Excellent.
I thought of buying one, but I didn't get round to it. But
yeah, well, the first one I got stayed on a shelf for about a year before I got it out. But they're wonderful things.
Yeah, I bought a magazine about it, but I didn't quite get to it. My next project, because something, that sort of thing. I've got somebody, a friend of I used to be a programmer back in the last century for 20 years, but I've had 20 years of not keeping up to date. And a friend of mine who's still an ex-colleague who still programs said he's doing a home project, not in his professional language, but in something called Bubble. Bubble.io is the URL. So I've kind of done the first couple of tutorials on it. Yeah, share your screen and show it. Bubble.io. And its headline is write software without programming, without code.
Yeah, like that Node-RED that Andy.
Well, it's not quite as easy. No, it's not like drag and drop. It is there is a bit of, it's just easy code, I suppose. Yeah. So I haven't got into it quite yet. So, I'm just starting.
Well, it's the natural development of software. It's all abstractions. Years ago, you'd be assembler, then it was C, and it just raises up and gets easier and easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm thinking of, you know, I've got ideas of something I'd like to create, a couple of little trial things before I do something big. But yeah, I'm maybe inspired to kind of take notes of what I do and maybe do it as a present it.
Oh, that would be brilliant. I'd love that. Yeah.
You know, if I can, and get inspired somebody, here's a way to get started on software.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly hot on hardware, so all the kind of gadgets for Raspberry Pis and that, I'm not. I have no experience in that, or particularly motivation for it.
I think the key for this kind of stuff is having a problem that you really need to solve.
Yes.
Because then you'll inevitably hit a hard point, something that's really frustrating.
Yeah.
You need an end goal to keep you going.
Need something to do, yeah. Well, my idea, I don't mind sharing it because it's not like I'm trying to make any money out of it, but is my idea is lots of the calculators you get, whether they're physical or you know on the computer, they don't handle fractions. They all do decimals really well.
Yeah.
But I'd like a calculator that does fractions, where I can have input in fractions and output in fractions and in decimals. So
that's a really nice idea.
So I've kind of got this idea of like a dual display and a keypad that not just has, you know, point something, but you can put in half and thirds and quarters and fifths and things. Yeah, and does the calculations and gives the output in both in both ways.
That would go down very well in the American market.
Would it? Yeah, and I thought it's a good thing for schools as well. You know, it would be good for education.
Yeah.
Because it's a tangible, easy thing for even quite young children to get hold of.
Yeah, well, Imperial stuff is really nice. You know, I mean, I'm an engineer. I was trained as an engineer. It's all metric, and metric's the way to go. But the Imperial stuff is just so practical.
Yeah.
And is a human scale. You know, this is an inch roughly. That's roughly a foot. You know, forearm and all that. And it's just so much more understandable and then when you get to the fractions, when you're doing woodwork, and when you're going for half a measurement, it's just a lot easier to work out and work with.
Yeah, the 5/8 and all that stuff. Yeah.
What's half of 5/8? Well, it's 5/16. You know, it's easy.
2 1/2/8. Yeah. Well, that in fact is exactly the thing. If I put in, you should be able this calculator. You could be able to put in 2 1/2/8. And it work out the answer. And presumably it comes out as 5/16.
Yeah, there's something human about it, isn't there? It just works. Yeah. And that's why we used it before metric, before science came along.
So, but I'm not very good at applying myself to these things. I don't want the pressure of deadlines, but I'll kind of, it gives me an extra dimension to do it. It's not just to do it for me and to put it out there, but to share how I did it.
I would love it if you gave a talk on that. That'd be great.
This stuff comes out that, you know, you can put it on a web page or an Android or an iPhone. I think that's what attracts me to get into this. It's it does multi-platform output. So
well, I think rather than making an app, it's the way to go is put it on a web page, because then you can access it from any device.
But I think, but I think I think that if I understood it right, you can do all three, you know.
That's really interesting. I'll look into that later.
Yeah.
And especially the no code thing, it makes it so much more accessible.
It does sound, because I'm sure we've got people in the tech group who are good with physical tech, hardware, who might be a bit frightened about programming. And this would be a way, this would be something for them.
That's great. That's really good.
And you don't have to, like it says at the bottom, free account, you don't have to commit lots of money to it to get the basics. You can develop stuff for small scale. If you want to industrialize it and then kind of have some big website, making money, then you've got to start paying.
Yeah, of course,
which is
yes.
fair enough. But you can do hobby type projects without even forking out any money.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Hey ho.
Right. Great to meet you, Richard.
And you, Matt. Thanks a lot.
Hope to
When's
see you.
When's the next online event?
29th.
29th. Yeah. Well, that's
Last
not long.
Thursday of every month,
Okay.
except December.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully I'll make it to that one.
Yeah, I hope you do. And
Okay.
yeah, okay. Speak to you again next month.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm going to sign off
Good night.
now. Bye.